Notre Dame fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast. For the first time ever, we have the whole Irish Breakdown team together for one show, and we are going to talk about today's one and only spring practice.
Yeah, one and only.
So we felt like this was kind of a big deal. It's the only full practice we're going to get to see. So I figured, hey, look, let's get the whole team in there. I flew Ryan in, Sean drove in, Vince was there. I got a chance to see as much of the practice as I could from where I was located, and we have a lot to bring to you today. So we are going to have a ton. We're going to go through it all. We're going to give you the things we liked, the things we didn't like, and all understanding this is all of our opinion based on a practice. Yeah. A guy not having a good day on the fifth practice does not mean he stinks, and a guy looking like a great player on the fifth practice of March doesn't mean he's going to be the next number one overall draft pick, okay? It's the context of they're a third of the way through spring. We got to get that out of there because we've seen the way some people have reacted to some of our other written reports. But I can assure you one thing I won't say is that Notre Dame is screwed. So, Toe Jam, don't worry. You're not going to need to have your wife check you into a funny farm. We're not going to say that you're screwed. I was encouraged by today's practice, guys. I'm going to just start off with sort of a big picture thing, and then we'll go Vince, Ryan, to Sean in regards to just kind of get everybody's overall picture. From what I saw today and what I think that my big takeaway, and Vince, you especially know this coming from me, I want to see a practice that's balanced, meaning one side of the ball doesn't dominate the entire practice. One particular matchup doesn't dominate the entire practice. Sean and I were talking about line play, and it was like O-line dominated early, but the D-line recovered and made some plays late. That's what you want to hear, right? Like, whereas last year was like, yeah, the D-line dominated from the beginning of practice until the end of practice, and we heard that every day. I love the balance of it. Offense won some reps, defense won some reps. And that's really where you want to be. Because if one side of the ball is just constantly dominating, it usually means the other side isn't very good. Yes, you may be good on that one side, but it usually means you're also not very good on the other. So that was kind of my big takeaway, guys. And my other big takeaway is it is obvious. We were told by our sources, we had it in our pre-spring practice report that the offense was way ahead of where it was a year ago, just kind of all around. And there's no doubt in my mind. I don't think quarterback is where it was last year because you don't have that fifth-year senior like a Jack Cohn who just was kind of a real steadying presence last spring. But in every other capacity, the offense is way ahead, in my opinion, of where it was a year ago. Vince, what was your big picture takeaway from today?
Well, big picture, I got a couple of takeaways. Number one, and Sean and I both commented on this after they started going live, again, offense versus defense. It was, man, it's nice to see the offensive line on the correct side of the line of scrimmage. Like that was a nice little change from what we saw last year. And I'm trying not to be as sarcastic as maybe it sounds like I'm being. Like that's a legit thing that we noticed. Like the 5 offensive linemen plus a tight end were pushing forward. They were moving beyond the line of scrimmage. They were reestablishing the line of scrimmage down the field. We didn't see that last year, and that's an observation. That is a comment that is not coming from sarcasm. That was a fact, and so that was very nice to see. The other thing was, as I was behind the lens of the camera, I was focusing on the wide receivers, obviously, and I mentioned this after the first practice that we had an opportunity to see the beginning of. The wide receivers and the wide receiver coaching and just the whole dynamic is a complete 180 from what it was before. These guys are so hungry to learn, okay? And what I mean by that is, as I was down there, and some of the video that I sent you, Brian, I think it showed, Coach Stuckey
I got to see a lot of this Coach Stuckey.
Yes, Coach Stuckey would literally show these guys what he wanted. I want you to do this, and I want you to take 2 steps here, and then go this way, and I want you to do that. And as he's doing it, there's like 3 or 4 different wide receivers trying to mimic him behind, like in the line. You know what I mean? Like they want to learn so badly. And it was poignant to me because a 5th-year senior in Braden Lindsey is like trying to mimic what Coach Stuckey is telling him to do. Like he's never seen this stuff before. Right. You know what I mean? That's the vibe that I got. And it was like, wow. And I realize that's what we have told everybody, and that's what we saw on the field. But it hit home for me watching these guys like they were all early enrollees basically
Mhm.
learning how to become collegiate wide receivers. And they showed it on the field too. Like these guys were getting open when they weren't getting open before. They were getting off press. They were doing good things in one-on-ones. And so those are the two things that really stood out to me. It was the offensive line and the wide receivers, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
And there was one time during that period, Vince, where Coach Stuckey had kind of walked him through it, and Lorenzo Styles started asking a question, and Joe Wilkins just kind of walks up, gently puts his hand on him, moves him to the side, and is like, I got this.
I got this young blood.
It wasn't in like a disrespectful way. It's like,
No.
okay, that's leadership.
Yes.
Right? Like, hey, let me show you, Lorenzo.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see, man.
And let me tell you, I was actually very impressed by Joe today.
Yeah.
Like, and I know we've said in the past, you know, Joe Wilkins is kind of a depth guy. You know, he's
you have said that in the past.
Okay, I will own that. I will own
Don't
it.
put that on us, man.
I'll own it. Okay, he impressed me today. Like he showed me that he is better than I thought he was going to be. To be honest with you,
this has been the whole thing the whole time, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole just yet. But this is the thing the whole time is guys aren't going to look like studs if they haven't been coached how to play to their potential.
And
Joe is
fair,
not.
Yeah.
Joe is not Kevin Austin.
Right.
He's not Chase Claypool. He's not that guy that just because of his just size and speed and athleticism, you just go out there and dominate. You didn't know what he's doing. Joe's the kind of kid that's a good athlete, a good football player, but he has to be a precision player. It's like imagine if Cooper Kupp wasn't coached or if Devontae Adams wasn't coached and they weren't good route runners. They wouldn't be in the NFL right now, right? They're not Chase Claypool. They're not Mike Evans. They're not that kind of guy. And that's the point is Joe needed coaching. And again, it's not none of these guys, nobody's a finished product yet, right? And there's some reps you're going to see where it's like, yeah, okay, that's kind of, you know, Sean, we're going to talk O-line here in a second, and Sean will tell you there were snaps where it's like, okay, that's kind of those bad habits you're still trying to break, right? You're 5 practices in. They're not going to be perfect, but it's so obvious to see that they've already taken a jump.
And
that was certainly a big takeaway.
Absolutely.
Ryan, what was your big takeaway from just the big picture from today's practice?
Well, I think partly it kind of parlays with what Vince kind of talked about a little bit. I think that the coaching side at certain positions have allowed the team to play a lot faster. And I mean, he talked about Joe Wilkins. For me, Joe Wilkins just looked like a completely different athlete, you know, and obviously he's not a burner, but like just like as a short intermediate separator, just the quickness out of breaks. And then you saw Braden Lindsey uncover deep, like consistently all day. That's a catch he had was phenomenal. Like I never remember Braden having a contested catch in his career, and he pulls off a incredible diving grab in the first portion of the practice. So I felt like just this team as a whole, they played fast. There was juice there, man. Even with their fastest player not on the field, Chris Tyree sitting out of practice, I felt like just from skill position to linebacker to secondary, I felt like people were just flying around, and even quarterback, you know, and I know we're going to talk a little more in depth, like Tyler Buckner was playing fast, you know, like they was processing quickly. Were there mistakes? Absolutely. But everybody I felt like was playing pretty loose and they were playing fast, and there were mistakes, but I felt like they were aggressive mistakes for the most part.
I want to ask all three of you guys a question before I kick it over to Sean about his overall progression, because Ryan, you just said something that I don't want to forget. I saw at least 4 or 5 times today where a receiver or a tight end or a running back laid out for a catch. Did you hear any of them get corrected or chastised? This is an honest question because I couldn't, like, what I saw, I couldn't hear what was being said. Did any of you guys hear anyone correct them or challenge them or say, hey, don't do that like we've seen in the past after those catches?
No, I didn't hear that one time.
That's what I was hoping to hear, because I can't tell you, I probably haven't seen that many guys lay out for catches in the 10 years I've been covering Notre Dame. This will be my 11th year because, you know, remember I took a couple years off. I don't remember if I've ever seen a guy lay out for a pass or he didn't get corrected. Hey, stay off the ground. Stay off the ground. And I'm glad to hear that didn't happen today. Because if you don't let him do it in practice, hey, guess what? Lorenzo's not going to lay out for that ball in against Oklahoma State if you don't let him do it in practice. So I was very, very happy to see that. Sean, just your takeaways from today, because we tried to have everybody kind of watching different things, but everybody also watched a little bit of everything. So
can I just say how nice it was to have these guys at practice with me? Yeah. There's so much pressure off my shoulders. Yeah. It's like, okay, we got eyes everywhere. This is awesome. Like it was so good to hang out with these guys, but I digress.
Sean, it's all good, buddy. Sean, what was your takeaway from today?
Oh, man, I probably would label it TTC, tempo, teaching, and competition.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I saw today. Great tempo, great teaching, and then the competition was at. Man, I asked Vince. I remember at the end of practice, I said, "So, this is my first time. Like, what you've been used to, like what stands out. And the one thing he said was they compete.
Mm-hmm.
It's very competitive. And I think that's what you pointed out when we started the podcast. Yeah, you saw a group dominate early and guys weren't hanging their heads and there weren't any excuses. Like, we're not making excuses. They were pulled to the side, talked to, get back out there and compete. And you saw guys improve as the practice went on. And that's what you want to see individually and as a team. And I jokingly told Ryan, I said, hey, it's a lot of talent on this field, isn't it? I don't know if the previous regime thought so, but looks like it's a lot of talent on this field to me.
Some people in the previous regime didn't think so. That's for sure. Sean relayed a particular situation of exactly what you talked about. Sean, is the story you relayed to me about Tyson Ford.
Yeah.
Early in, I think it was a team period you said, where Tyson got a couple times in a row, got double teamed. Because he was playing some 3 technique today. It looked like they were working on like their dime package or a nickel package with 2 linebackers, 4 D linemen, and 5 DBs.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyson was kicked inside playing some 3 technique. And I think Sean said he got like knocked off the ball a couple times. And so they called him out, and it wasn't ripping him. It was Coach Washington went right to him, coached him up, showed him some stuff. And Sean, you told me he came back in, and what did he do when he came back in after getting coached up a little bit?
He immediately started competing.
Yeah.
He immediately started competing. And him and Jason Onye.
Yeah.
I told Ryan in the middle of the practice, I was like, yo, a year from now, that combo is going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem. Like, let them get better, let them get stronger, let them get some reps. They're going to be a problem. Now, I don't know what the intent is for having them inside. You said they were working nickel, so maybe that was just
my read. They could just be 3 techniques.
They had 3 corners in most of the defense.
I was going to say we didn't really see Rover too much today. You saw a nickel.
The only time we saw Rover was when they had the 3rd team was working a little bit, and they had Patojo out there. It was the only time I remember seeing really much of.
Most of the time they had a 3rd corner.
Because you saw like Kaiser working as a true like inside linebacker.
Yeah, they had him as a will in some of those. Yeah. So that was just my takeaway. But again, that doesn't mean he's not going to be playing some 3 technique. It
doesn't mean that he won't be outside in certain situations as well.
Right.
In the future.
Right. So, guys, obviously, we all had some positive takeaways from the practice. I want to start with the position group that is the one I think most of us want to talk about. Before we do, I just got a super chat from K Grant. Thank you for that super chat, K Grant. Hope you guys had a nice dinner. Get rested up for the 5-hour show. Go Irish. I'm just telling you, hey, I know you're fired up about that, K Grant, and keep the super chats about the 5-hour show coming, but it's going to be a little bit before we have that 5-hour show. It's not going to happen when people think it is. It's not going to happen in the next few days. So I just want to prepare people for that a little bit. And if you're on the message board, you know exactly what he's talking about. I want to talk about not quarterback,
kicker.
Let's talk about line play.
Oh,
you don't have to talk about kicker, man. Okay, I'm taking Vince out of here.
Thunder leg, groupie, or whatever.
The remove button. We'll talk about the kickers at the end. We'll talk about line play, Sean. And obviously that's the position that, look, quarterback's important and running back and receiver. And we'll get to all those. And there's a lot to see and a lot to like today.
Yeah.
But I thought the line play was it was watching what I saw and you know what you and I talked about. It was nice to see the offensive line really competing. And it wasn't like a dominant day. It wasn't like anyone had a great practice. It was just they were battling. And the talent kind of showed up. And the thing that a lot of us have talked about, you know, was something that I pointed out before the season was the relationship between Harry Heastand and Blake Fisher and how that develops and evolves is going to be super important. And Sean, you had a lot to say to that when you and I were talking on your drive home today.
Harry setting the tone, right? If he's going to be able to talk to everybody, he has to be able to get on his best guy. And immediately they started out with field goal. And Blake, I think, he wasn't the end guy. He was the guy inside the end guy. And a couple of times he let some guys get a little penetration. And after it happening a couple of times, Harry yanks him, pulls him out, and he's sitting there telling him, like, he's showing him, like, get your base right here with your left leg, and your hand has to be right here. And he's showing him what he has to do. And this is just special team. It's not even like offensive line play. And immediately I'm like, okay, Harry's in that mode today. And then when they went to individual mode or teaching mode over in the corner, it was the same thing. It was Joe Alt and Blake getting the teaching immediately. Drive your blocks, move your feet, get your pad level. And when they try to get disengaged, turn them. Don't just let them go. Turn and continue to drive and he was teaching the entire time, and he started with his best 2 players and went on down the line.
And that's about finishing. The point of that is finishing, right?
Yep.
You don't turn too early like they had in the past, but there's a time when, and we saw that in practice a couple times too, Sean. There was a couple times where, Jason Onye and Gabriel Rubio were able to kind of come off blocks and get down the line and make a tackle because they didn't finish. Then there was a couple other times where they did that. Actually, I think it was Davis Sherwood, who's a walk-on fullback.
38.
Yeah.
Yes.
Planted
did that to
somebody.
Jordan Patelho.
Is that Patelho?
Oh, yeah.
Planted him.
So, like, Patelho tried to kind of come off to get to the play, and he just wham, just punted, and then got up and stepped over him. I said, okay, the offense is coming with some funk today. Even the walk-ons are getting after it. But there was a lot of competing, and it was just like you said, Sean, it was that confident emphasis on finish. And like early, you and I talked about Zeke Corrales, another example, Sean, where early in practice, it was a lot of the same old. And there's a couple snaps early from Josh Lugg where he kind of stood up.
Yep.
And there were some snaps from Zeke Corrales where he would hit and just feet would just bam, just become stuck in mud.
Yeah.
And you could hear Coach Easton immediately getting on them about moving their feet. And then as practice wore on, we started to see it. And that's what's going to happen now. Everybody needs to understand these guys, 5 practices is not even close to enough to where it's just, it's exactly how Coach Easton wants it, right? I'm hoping 5 games is enough to get it to that point in time, right? But it's good to be able to see it being applied, but it's also good on both sides of the ball, Sean, to see that kids are making mistakes. They're getting coached immediately.
Yep.
And they're going back out there and applying it. That's a great sign. That's a sign of young men that want to learn.
Yes.
And also a coaching staff that knows how to communicate it in a way where it can be received and then processed. And that was a big thing.
And the best thing is now we're not left in limbo as a fan base because, watching last year, we're saying they have to be getting taught. Like, they have a coach. He has to be teaching them. We were told by the head coach every week they're being taught. So now it's left for us to believe that these guys are incapable of taking teaching and applying it on the field. And that was destroyed in 2 hours just watching this practice because they were able to take it in private sessions and then immediately apply it and be successful with it in the scrimmages. So I'm glad Harry's back. That's enough. Let me say that again. I am glad that Harry is back.
Well, and Sean, the other thing too is I think this is going to make the defensive line better. And one of the things I've heard from now multiple sources is there's some concerns about the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, the defense. I mean, of course, you don't have Jason Adamiola, Isaiah Foskey. It's like we said, is limited. You guys saw him today. He was out there in one-on-ones and stuff. But then during team, he just got a couple reps. I don't even remember seeing him in team, but
he was a little bit. He was out there, but I don't think
not a ton. So he's limited. But even then, like, you still got a lot of guys coming back that have played a lot of football as part of one of the 10 to 15 best defensive teams in college football last year. And they're having some problems early so far through 5 practices. Mm-hmm. And people are like, so-and-so's got to step. I'm like, this guy was good last year. So either A, he's regressed, or B, what's happening is they're actually being challenged more now than they were last year. And I think that's a good sign. So when I keep so I had a couple people tell me they're concerned about the D-line, and they were coming at it from a concerned standpoint. But in my head, I'm thinking that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Like, honestly, it's exactly what I wanted to hear, because it means if they're struggling, it means the offensive line's playing well.
Yep.
And that's a great sign. And it's going to make them better and better and better, because there's a lot of guys getting reps that need those reps. So I think that's a good sign. And it goes back to the whole thing about what you said, Sean, is it's glad that the coaching is what it is, because that's only going to make those guys better.
Yeah. And then they have a lot of versatility. I think Notre Dame is one of those teams that has to face multiple types of offenses because of their schedule, and they're not locked into a conference, right?
Yeah.
So they can go from a spread to a triple option like in 1 week. And the depth that they have along the defensive line gives them an opportunity to mismatch based upon matchups. They might have a week where they come out with the nickel look when they go against a spread team. And then they come back and they won't use Tyson Ford and Onye on the inside, but they'll go heavy, and they might have Jason Adamiola on the inside,
right?
Gabriel Rubio, and let's say Ernsberger and Riley Mills. They just go heavy across the front. And now, it gives them flexibility to have different rotations. And I just need everybody to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. along both lines. Health
Right.
is paramount because the depth at certain positions is just not there. And with Billy Schroff not getting reps
Right.
during the spring, health is paramount for both.
Well, and I think Pat Coogan's been a little banged up. I didn't see Joey Tenone out there today as well. But you look at the offensive line; it wasn't like a perfect practice today. I thought Joe Alt was a little bit more inconsistent than we usually see him. I thought he had a couple issues at times, and he's just he's fundamentally sound. It was a rough day for Andrew Kristofic. I thought there was he seemed to be unsure of some things. Like there was a couple times on blitzes against team where he just kind of turned the guy loose and. He didn't look like he knew what was coming on. And there was a couple other run snaps where I thought he came off well. We know what he can do, so you're going to have some of those ups and downs. I thought Michael Carmody was really up and down, and is he still learning the center position? I'll tell you who impressed me today, guys, in what I saw is I thought the backup tackles had a really good day.
Yes, they did.
Tosh Baker at left tackle and Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson's still got to put on another 15 pounds.
Yeah, he looks skinny.
He's a skinny dude, but man, he's a quality athlete, and he looked solid today. And I thought Tosh had a really good day at left tackle in practice today, going up against the second team defense.
Yeah, I mentioned that as well. Especially you saw it, the scrimmage towards the end of practice. They held up quite well. Gave a pocket to both Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner. And for me, that was a surprise because I was really worried about Carmody. I felt like the inside interior we saw last year, he's better inside. You don't need to see him at either tackle position.
And he's still learning a new position.
Yeah,
I'm not
worried
about
He's still learning a new position. But I was pleasantly surprised by Caleb Johnson. He had a matchup with Isaiah Foskey. And Isaiah tried to give him a counter spin move, and he handled it very well.
The athletic stuff he handles well. It's the power stuff that he's going to struggle. That he struggled with today.
Adding 15 pounds, getting stronger, and he will. And then Tosh Baker is someone we really thought had an opportunity to play last year.
He looked so bad athletically last year, guys. I mean, the athlete that we saw in high school, we didn't see last year.
Right.
You started to see that kid again. Like he looked more comfortable and confident in his footwork.
Yeah.
He was using his hands and his length effectively. He's 6'8". He's going to have some problems at times with his length. But I thought he wasn't lights out, guys. It's like Joe Alt better watch his back. I'm not saying that. We're just saying it was nice to see him out there kind of have a steady, consistent practice.
He needed that. He needed that because he needs to push those guys.
He needs confidence.
And he needs confidence. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I thought that last year he looked lost. He looked lost last year when he was out there.
The one guy that is a hot topic of conversation that I had a hard time with today was Rocco Spindler. And there was a couple blocks I saw that I liked where he came off really hard and got a good movement. And then there was another block where he was working a double team and he quickly came off and just smacked the Mike linebacker. There was a lot of snaps I just didn't like what I saw from Rocco. I thought his feet looked heavy. I didn't think he moved all that great. I think I don't know, it's just he's so big and everybody else is kind of so thin, like the spring thin that they got going on right now. But he doesn't move like I thought he was going to be moving. I don't know if he's too heavy. I don't know if he's coming back from injury. There could be a lot of things that are the reasons why he looked like that. All I know is that today, this is the second time we've now seen the offensive line in the spring. And both times I thought athletically Rocco was one of the, I'd rank him maybe at the bottom, but near the bottom of the scholarship linemen when it came to foot quickness and change the direction.
Well, and it was something clearly that the coaches have seen as well because they had him running. He was splitting reps between the second and third team.
Right.
Part
of that's numbers. They don't
absolutely, but they got somebody,
lines,
and he was picked to be that guy. So I just thought I don't want this to sound bad, but it's the best term. He looked a little dumpy. You know what I mean? Just kind of like it was the foot quickness that he didn't have, and so he was like a step slow. He was coming off a double team one time, and he didn't get there, and the defensive lineman just went just right past him and got into the backfield. It was little things like that. It was just I was expecting a little bit more, but then maybe that is why we haven't seen as much of him as we thought we might. Last year and then early this year. So again, one practice. All right. So there's obviously room and time for improvement. But yeah, I was disappointed. honestly, in what I saw from Rocco. I was expecting more.
Ryan, any takeaways from you from the line?
Yeah, no, I was going to add to Rocco for a second. It's a shame that for whatever reason, the foot quickness just isn't there. At least it wasn't today, because, I mean, when you see him, when he gets fit inside, he can be an overwhelming dude at the point of attack. But when he's working laterally right now, he just can't keep leverage. Like he just loses leverage too consistently. And I think that was kind of an issue overall on the offensive line a little bit today, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I felt like some guys were just falling off of blocks a little bit at times. And there was, but there was times, you do see the flashes, when Andrew Kristofic is on, you see the movement skills. Blake Fisher was starting fights at some point because he was dominating
a couple
dudes.
of them. Yeah,
man. He was dominating dudes in some down blocks.
And they didn't like it. They didn't like being dominated.
Big Bo Bauer did
but
not.
Guys, we
like
didn't see that in the past. That's the thing. Sean, you had said this to me during I don't remember if you said this earlier in the show, but you definitely said this to me on the phone, is the demeanor of the offensive line is so much different. Like they're playing with an edge. Like Ryan, you talk about like the things you're talking about are technical things. You stop moving your feet, you're gonna lose a block, right? You turn your hips, you're gonna move a block. The thing that I liked is, number one, as Sean pointed out, those things were being immediately recognized and addressed, number one. But number two, even when they're not winning a rep, they're playing with
Absolutely,
an attitude, a toughness that we didn't see. And like you said,
fire.
Coach Freeman said he doesn't want to see fights, and I'm not a big fan of the fights thing, but what we saw today and what you guys were telling me about today is kind of like, well, that's kind of, if you're going to have something, that's what I want to see, because somebody just kicked your freaking butt and your pride got hurt. Bo Bauer's pride got a little bit hurt today by Blake Fisher. Jack Kaiser's pride got hurt a little bit today by Blake Fisher, and they didn't handle it well. But I kind of want to see that a little bit. I want to see this offensive line play a little pissed off after getting their butt kicked last year.
They last year's demeanor of the offensive line is they just kind of took it. You know what I mean? They were just kind of like, oh, well, here we go again, and I don't blame those guys because it comes from the top. And they apparently that was okay. Like that clearly that was okay, right? But they just kind of took it. And they took it in their play and they took it in their demeanor, right? And so that's why in run blocking they received as opposed to taking it too. It was just all around, they just took it. And that is not the case. They're taking it to the defense now, which is a complete 180 in the mental preparation of this group. Are they technically sound yet? Nope, they're not. But all of that, like you said, is being addressed. And I can coach guys who want it, who have that mentality. Like you can coach those guys and they're going to get better and better and better and better. I have no doubt in my mind.
I would say this, Brian. Right now, I'd be willing to say, and you can fight back if you disagree with this, the offensive line today, even without Jared Patterson, is better than it was at any point last year. In my opinion.
See, I was ready to fight, man.
Agreed.
You gotta say something that makes sense, man. I was ready to battle with you a little bit.
Smart people say smart things, Brian.
Yeah, I know, right? Dang it, I hired too many smart people. I don't even argue about. No, I think you're right. Again, that's the whole thing, though. Like, I think they're so far ahead of where they were at this time a year ago.
Oh my!
It just, Blake looks great. Joe's a little bigger. Zeke looks way better than he did a year ago. Consistency is still a problem. That's the thing, is the consistency is going to be the key, right? Like that's what this offensive line still needs, and it's going to be consistency. Can you do it? Can you start doing it more? Can you string more good sets together? I think that's going to be the key, Ryan. As far as do they look better than they did at the end of the year? I would say yes. Yep. I would agree with that. Do they look like they're good enough to go out and play Ohio State tomorrow? No, they're not there yet because it's March 26th. But the consistency is going to be the key. Consistency of effort, consistency of focus, consistency of technique, consistency of execution. Those things are still not there, as we don't expect them to be 5 practices in. But they are leaps and bounds, in my opinion, above where they were last year. Same close.
No doubt.
At this time last year.
Right.
They're not leaps and bounds better than where they were when they ended the season, because they had some good moments late in the season. But they're leaps and bounds better than where they were a year ago when they were getting dominated, to where, from everything we're hearing, and again, when you hear things from sources, you kind of take it with a grain of salt, because sometimes people have biases or maybe agendas, or maybe only saw part of a practice or whatever. But, I've been hearing consistency, like, the D-line, they're struggling in camp. And then you want to get out to practice and say, okay, is it this, they're not any good, or is it the O-line's really kicking butt? And from what we can tell, it's the O-line's up their game. I want to stay up with the big boys, and I want to shift over to the defense here real quick in the defensive line. Obviously, very, very little Foskey, no Jason Adamiola. We saw very little Justin Adamiola today. It was obvious they were getting younger guys reps. And from what I've heard, Justin's had a really good spring camp so far. I've heard that from a couple people. So it looked like they were working on getting some younger guys the ball. Just a couple quick observations that I had. A guy that Sean, you talked about this earlier, Jason Onye, right? First of all, he stands out because he's just so much bigger than everybody else. He's like 6'5", that go-go gadget arms, and he's a legit 285. I mean, he looks big. And there are some snaps where he looks like he has no clue what he's doing. None. Like, what was I supposed to do here? Okay, how much? And he just gets blocked easily. And then the next rep, for whatever reason, he must be confident when he's doing the next rep because he comes off. Like, there was a play, he was going against Michael Carmody. Now, keep in mind, Michael Carmody started games last year, for Notre Dame. He comes off the line, and him and Carmody go face-to-face. Jason takes him, and he locks him out and then throws him and comes off and makes a tackle in the backfield. And you're like, wait a second. It was like, that was impressive. He had about 4 or 5 plays like that today where you're like, okay. But the problem is he had 4 or 5 plays that were like just as bad. So to me, he has to be an Al Washington pet project because you've got to take that kid under your wing because of all the guys we saw today of the non-freshmen, we'll get to them in a minute. He's the guy that said, okay, that guy could not only help you in the fall, like down the road, and not just be a starter, but that could be a guy like that. He is, because he's so young. He only played 2 years of high school football. Man, I got to tell you, he's the guy that stood out to me as like, as you're looking for, okay, what's the future going to look like? That's the kid that you said, okay, that kid's got a chance to, I don't know when the light's going to go on, but he showed me some things today, guys.
Yeah, Jason Onye and Howard Cross for me.
Yeah.
The 2 interior guys that were in the backfield, disruptive. Howard Cross definitely was more consistent.
Sean, you couldn't have 2 more different players and body types.
No, you couldn't.
That's the wild thing, right? Like, good players come in different shapes and size. One's 6'5", 285. The other one's 6'1", 265.
But it goes back to what you alluded to. Howard knows who he is, and he knows what to do.
Yeah, and he's quick.
Exactly. He knows who he is, what to do, and he plays fast. Jason, sometimes, like you said, he doesn't know what he's supposed to do, and he gets blocked easily. But the very next play, because he's so competitive, and he knows that he's good, he knows he has talent, but I don't think he's caught up to the fact that he's as good as he really is. He'll play faster. He'll play stronger. I think he might add a little more weight in the future, but the kid has a bright future.
Yeah,
he definitely has a bright future. And now we get to see, with all these different types, we get to see the coaching ability of Al Washington. I think you said when he came over, he's more comfortable coaching the defensive line than he is the linebacker position. Yeah. We'll see that. Another thing I pointed out to you is that the third private session they had, because they were outside, they were the only group that was outside doing sled work where everyone else was inside. When they came inside, they were over there in the right corner. And it was Al Washington who was specifically working with the interior players. And Al Golden came over and worked with the defensive ends on their counters and their pass rush. So I thought that was very interesting. But we'll see. They have a lot of talent to work with, and they have a lot of talent coming in. And the next, if they get the guys that they want, over the next 2 recruiting cycles. So
one thing we got to remember, too, about where Hiestand and the O-line are compared to where Al Washington and the D-line are. Harry Hiestand's been watching Notre Dame for the last 2 years. I mean, one of the reasons Coach Hiestand decided to come back to Notre Dame, from what we were told from sources, was he watched the team this year and was like, there's some talent there, and I'd like to work with it. Once the coaching change was made, that was kind of the thing that factored into it. And so Al Washington's 5 practices into knowing these kids. Also, Harry Hiestand recruited some of the kids that are at Notre Dame. I mean, he recruited Josh Luck. He recruited Andrew Kristoff. He recruited Zeke Carell. So there's a more intimate knowledge of their strengths and weaknesses than Al Washington has of those crews, because his focus in the fall was Ohio State. You know what I mean? So got to keep that in mind too. Coach Washington is still learning what these kids do well and don't do well. And so I think that's part of it too. You also don't have your best player your second best defensive lineman's not there. your best defensive lineman is limited. So I think it's going to present some opportunities, but they've got to get better. I mean, some of these young guys have to step up and make plays. We know what Howard Cross can do. What we don't know, and we'll get into in the summer, is can he do it for 35, 40 snaps? That's what we don't know. You know, Jacob Lacey, Sean, you said had some moments today, but Riley Mills has got to step up. I thought he was the best. He had the best pass rushing moments of the day from the interior. I mean, his hit for a 285, 290-pound guy, his first step is out. So he's got to work on leverage a little bit. He's still got to use his hands better. But from just a pure athleticism standpoint, I was really impressed with what I saw from Riley Mills today.
Yeah, I was impressed with Riley. Now, the next best pass rush, I mentioned it to you. I was actually in the scrimmage, and I think Justin Admiola came off the edge, and I think Alt was expecting speed rush, and halfway through his rush, he just transitioned to power and just pushed Joe right back into the quarterback. And I think it was Drew Pine that had to step up, and I was like, okay, because we didn't see that a lot from Justin. And, you know, he's steadily improved each and every year.
Right.
He's gotten better. So it's going to be interesting to see how he improves. Like you said, they get everybody back healthy. Once again, health. Keep everyone on both sides of the ball healthy, and Notre Dame should be okay along the lines.
Ryan, what was you were going to respond about Riley Mills?
He wants to talk about Riley Mills because he and I were talking about Riley Mills.
No, I mean Riley, I think that he represents a very intriguing football player because, like you said, not only does he have the pass rush from the inside, but he also worked at defensive end as well. So he's kind of that real move piece that you want. But trying to backtracking a second to Jason Anye and even Gabriel Rubio, who we haven't talked about, one or two of those guys needs to play this year. Like they have to, because right now you just don't have size on the interior too much, right? Like you have Jason Adamalola, who's a really good player, 280 pounds. You have Howard Cross, who we talked about, 6'1", 265. You have Jacob Lacey, 6'1", 275.
He's up to 285, by the way.
Up to 285.
Now that he's recovered from the injury. But still, that's not a massive – that's not a – it's not Lewis Nix.
Right. Well, Anye and Gabriel Rubio are both 6'5" dudes who are 285 plus pounds, 290 something in Gabriel Rubio's case. Those are your only real guys that you would legitimately call bigger, longer interior players outside of Riley Mills. And if neither one of those players can give you not even substantial, but just can give you snaps inside, then Riley is not that movement chess piece because you have to play him more inside than he can play outside. Like it's very dependent on one of those guys, in my opinion, stepping up.
It's not what you're saying is it's not just Riley has to step up. He has to step up and have a big spring, but those guys have to step up in order to feel comfortable saying, hey, we can move him to big end if the need is there, because the big end position is interesting. And we'll get to that in a second. But I think with Gabriel Rubio, saw some things I like today. His compete level is high. That's what we always expect from Gabriel Rubio. He battles, but he's got I'm surprised that his technique isn't better. His block destruction is inconsistent. He had a couple nice plays where he, got off blocks and made plays, but he's going to have to, in my opinion, really continue to raise his play, because he's the one with Aiden Kaneana injured. He's the one guy that brings you some beef. But he showed me some things today, right? Onye showed me some things. A guy that Ryan, I found very interesting was Alexander Ehrensberger. It's like him, Blake Fisher, Jason Onye, like Joe Alt, Michael Mayer, Deion Colsey. That's like my group of who are the first dudes off the bus, right? Alexander Ehrensberger is absolutely in the conversation for one of my first 2 or 3 guys off the bus. That guy looks like a freak. I mean, he is 6'7". He's got to be close to 260 pounds now, and he's athletic. He's just still got to learn to play the game. I mean, that's the thing is because if he can – here's the thing, and this is the point that you get to. As good as Notre Dame's offensive line has been, especially inside, but even, this has been a group that has been not just – I don't care as much about weight, because I think, Aaron Donald, there's a lot of guys that have proved you can be a great player at not a typical weight. Jason Adamiola is an example of that. It's the length that's been concern for me. Myron's not a long guy. Kurt Hinish wasn't a very long guy. Jason Adamiola is long for a 6'3" guy, but I'd rather have Long for a 6'5" guy. And that's where Rubio and Onye and Riley Mills, and then on the edge, Alexander Ahrensberg come into play. And then, of course, the freshman, which we'll get to here in a second. But that's the thing that you notice is the younger you get on the roster, the longer guys are.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys got to step up and emerge because they're going to need some of that beef. They're going to, I mean, and look, I don't know if anyone's going to step up as the guy, but if they can just have a lot of guys that are just good players, that's going to help the defensive line when everybody gets healthy. But Ahrensberger is an intriguing guy for me, fellas, because if the light goes on for him, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, if some of those interior guys step up or you feel you can play Riley Mills at big end, that's my, fingers crossed. I really hope that's how it pans out. When Jason comes back and he takes over 3 technique and, hopefully Onye steps up and you got Lacey and Cross and hopefully Rubio can step up and, you've got some guys there and you can play Riley Mills at big end. My dream scenario is Mills and Ahrensberger. The light goes on for the 2 of them, because if those 2 kids can figure it out, all of a sudden big end becomes a big problem for opposing teams. They're not close to that yet, but today you saw some flashes, fellas, of, boy, if you can consistently get that right there from those 2 kids, that's what you're going to have opposite of Isaiah Foskey. And outside of Jason Adamiola, good luck with that, fellas. They're a long way from being there, but you could see the flashes of it today.
Yeah. Now, Ahrensberger, I mean, like you said, man, 6'6 plus, 255 listed. Like you said, he might even be a little heavier than that at this point. I think the thing that really stands out about him, Brian, is he's got a really nice first step for a guy that long and that big, right? Like it's not an ordinary first step. So anytime you have that type of first step, you're going to put offensive tackles in tough situations. From there, it's about the hand nuance. From there, it's about understanding your arsenal of attack as a pass rusher. I am excited about Ahrensberger because you have seen him have some production in a small amount of snaps in the past, just based upon his athleticism and his length. So if he's able to put it together, and again, where you have a guy like a Riley Mills who can work outside and in, then there's potential like, hey, Ahrensberger's outside on 3rd downs, and then you move Riley Mills inside, and now you just have Jason Adamalola and Riley Mills rushing inside. You got Foskey out there. Maybe you have Ahrensberger. Maybe you have Justin Adamalola out there too. Like, just endless possibilities of a guy like an Ahrensberger can be that guy.
In a pure nickel look against a team that's a kind of a spread throwing team, that's a great base defensive look right there with Jason and Riley inside, because they're not running the ball like a traditional. Like if somehow they get matched up against a Mike Leach team, or if USC throws the ball like they have in the past, like to me that's like a dream lineup for me. Because you don't need a true nose in that situation. They're going to run the ball, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. The last 2 we'll talk about before we move on to some other positions, Tyson Ford and Aiden Gobira. Aiden Gobira is super long and super twitchy. He's going to be a really, really good player for Notre Dame. He's a long way away right now size-wise. I mean, you could see he's always skinny, but when you see him up against college players, he's even skinnier. Love the burst. He's going to have to get a lot stronger. Tyson Ford, guys, he might be hard to keep off the field this year. I mean, because he still doesn't know what he's doing, but the thing about him and Onye especially, I'm talking about the pure interior guys right now that were there today, and Mills. I think that trio, since Mills was inside today too. The guys that were inside today, the guys that only played inside today, there's a different level of athleticism with those 3 than we've seen from some of the big guys in Notre Dame in the past. Like the only guy we've seen Adamiola and Howard Cross, like the smaller guys like that. There's a level of athleticism and a size athleticism combination that we haven't seen a lot of from Notre Dame with its big guys. I mean, really, we haven't seen that since Tillery, since Jerry Tillery in 2018, where, again, we're not talking about Jason Adamiola because he doesn't have the size component. Jason's got the athleticism, the strength component, the playmaking component. We're talking about that size, athleticism component. Tyson Ford has really, I mean, compared to the other guys, doesn't have a clue what he's doing, but that kid has some talent. Like I was like, okay, he's going to be as good as I think he's going to be. I don't know when it's going to go on. The light's going to go on, but guys, he's going to have a chance to be a really, really good football player at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think that's what you saw, and I think the coaches saw that. That's why they pulled him immediately to get his head back straight. Say, yo, because I was like, yo, that's unfair. It's funny. This is your first snap of the scrimmage, and they call a combo block on you playing inside.
Wasn't it against Blake and Lugg too, or was it against the second team line? I can't. It was against.
No, it was against the first team.
That's what I thought.
It was the first team, and I remember asking Ryan. I said, how difficult is it not just to go from high school to college, but to go from playing outside in high school to playing interior in college? And he said it's extremely difficult, man. Like
it's a little different. It's a little different.
Yeah, it's like what you're asking this kid to do. They wouldn't ask him to do that if they didn't think he was well capable physically and athletically.
Well, Sean, they also wouldn't do it if they didn't think he had a chance to help them. They just keep him in one position and say, we're going to work on that one position.
Right.
But they were moving a lot of guys around. Like they had Aiden Gobyra at big end today. So it's kind of interesting to see that one. So guys, let's move on. Let's move on to some skill stuff, right? Because we're not just talking about the big boys today, as much as we love line play. Obviously, I think the first one we want to get to, first of all, Reza, my man, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you very, very much, my friend. I want to get to the quarterbacks. I thought I had two takeaways from the quarterbacks today.
Okay, I'm interested to hear what you have to say here.
Yeah, number one, I definitely feel like Tyler Buchner was clearly the better quarterback today. But number two, the quarterback it's a ways away. Like it's not where it needs to be yet. I'm not surprised by it because it's two guys that have never really started games and it's practice 5. But it's definitely a work in progress. There's no question about it. There's a lot of inconsistency from both of them today. But I watch them and I say they both look like they are showing a better command.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that from today.
The quarterback position for me, I completely agree with your first statement. Tyler Buchner gave me nothing to make me think that he's not the starter, number one. I thought Drew Pine struggled at times, but again, I think some of that had to do with some decision-making. Like I felt like there was a couple of times where he could have made a quicker decision and then he would have been good to go, but he was just a little bit late on some of his throws. They were the right decision, but they were just a little bit late. Another thing that stood out to me was Tyler's arm. I know everybody's all worried about Tyler's arm. Can he make throws? Dude, he made some throws today. He had one corner route that he threw. Put it right where it needed to be, right on the sideline. Was it Joe Wilkins that went up and got it, guys? I can't remember who it was. I think it was Joe, but it doesn't matter because the where the ball was placed, and it was probably 35, 40 yards in the air, boom, right on the sideline. Beautiful. Right?
See, I don't think that's the throw people are worried about. I don't think people are worried about his ability to make that throw or the 25-yard drag because we've kind of seen that a little bit. I think the question that I still have, just because of his throwing motion, is can he hit that throw that we've talked about with Ian Book against Navy where he banged the post route 60 yards? I mean, he gets his drop and hits that post route 60 yards over the top. That's the concern. That's not the concern. It's not the concern. It's we just haven't seen him do it. And he didn't really do it in high school very much. And we haven't seen him do it at Notre Dame. I think that's
they didn't have one of those routes. They didn't have one of those routes.
Right, I get that. Yeah. But that's I think that's the throw that anyone that actually has paid attention to Tyler Buchner, I think that's the throw people can genuinely say, I don't know if it's there yet, but the reality is you're only going to make that throw 6 or 7 times an entire season. I mean, that's just not a throw you're going to make a ton, really. But I think that's more the question mark. I think for me, the thing from Tyler today, I don't question his arm strength, Vince. I mean, like you said, there was a couple times where he's fitting balls into windows. I think it was it Ryan or Vince that was telling before the show, like, you're like, oh, dude, why are you throwing there? And then he fits it in between 3 guys. You're like, oh, okay. Like, I'm going to probably correct that with him. Like, hey, it's a great
he's
throw.
Not afraid to do it. He's not afraid to do it. And that's
able to do it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's willing to, and this is where Drew's got to step up. And Drew's got to look. Drew's not Ian Book, but like at times, Drew's like, I don't know if I want to make that.
Right. Absolutely.
Tyler just lets her rip. Now, sometimes that's going to get him into trouble. So you got to harness it, because there was one where it's like, it was the play where DJ Brown had the cheap shot on Lorenzo Styles. I think Tyler got caught between, am I throwing the cross or the seam? And it just kind of landed in between the two of them. And then, Lorenzo kind of turns around and gets hit by DJ Brown. But, I think the thing for me is the arm angle, the release point still gets out of whack sometimes. He had one ball, he just kind of sailed Looked like he was trying to throw an out cut and it just kind of took off on him. He still has a couple of those that has to continue to get worked through, but it's less than it was a year ago. And like you said, guys, he's throwing with a lot more confidence.
And I thought he was making good decisions. I thought he made a lot of really good decisions today. They had a couple choice type things where, throw swing, go the tight end, things like that. And it was like taking candy from a baby. Like one of those is going to be wide open. It's like one of those kind of plays, and he's picking the right guys. And there's no hesitation in his throws either. And I think that's huge because for the last 4 years, I shouldn't say 4 years. I like where Jack Cohn was. Before Jack Cohn, there was hesitation from the quarterback, right?
What was before Jack Cohn? Was there something?
There was another number 12, and I'm not talking about Jordan Battelle.
Hey, look, Ian Book deserves to have his name said. Like, for all my complaints, Ian Book is not the former head coach.
He was a winner.
He loves Notre Dame, and he's a good kid.
Absolutely.
He battled. He just wasn't a great.
But he didn't. He hesitated.
He was unwilling to make the tough throws,
right,
especially in bigger games. I don't think that's going to be Tyler Buckner's problem. We definitely didn't see that today. It's never really been something we've seen from him. But it's about the key for a quarterback's coach, guys, is harnessing that to where you don't want to beat it out of them, but you just want to improve the decision making.
Sure.
But you want to see him take those chances in practice. And we've said this before. If you don't take the chances in practice, you're never going to know if you can make that play or not.
Right.
And I don't think with Tyler, it's going to be the case. And I think with Drew's going to have to understand, like, look, you've got to be willing to let some of those rip.
Yeah.
And during one-on-ones, Drew made a couple really nice throws. And, he had a really nice far hash, like kind of stop route that I liked during team where he just read it, he saw it, and he threw it because the flat defender was trying to bait him into the throw, but Drew saw it, got it out quick, and threw it high and away to where that flat defender couldn't make the ball. To pinpoint that far hash throw was like, okay, that's an impressive throw from Drew. He just has to understand it. Like, you can't be trying to match Tyler throw for throw. You're different players.
Right.
But if you're going to be the best version of yourself, you have to get, and I think it goes back to your original point, is he's got to show better timing and anticipation.
Right.
Because he doesn't have the arm to just, I'm going to drive it in there. So that the anticipation, the timing, Ryan, I think that for Drew is going to be the biggest area. Is like, you've got to be more like, okay, I see it, I'm going to get it out there and let it happen.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, obviously, we're talking about a competition, right? And I mean, Drew's going to be in the thick of this, and we're looking at Tyler. And I mean, I'll be very honest. The word that comes to mind when I saw Tyler today was conviction. I felt like everything he threw was with conviction.
It's great.
He had an early miss near the sideline. I think it's probably the same one we're talking about, Brian. And then he threw the interception. That was a great play by Ryan Barnes. I mean, let's give him credit on that. Kind of undercutting I think it was just a corner route on the outside to Joe Wilkins.
You talking about the one-on-one?
Yeah, the one-on-one.
And I don't know if that's a throw he makes in team, but in one-on-one, you taught just throw the ball.
Right.
Exactly. Like, I hate when quarterbacks don't throw the ball in one-on-ones.
Right.
But to your point, but Brian's point isn't that the result necessarily isn't the thing. It was, Ryan, like, I just want to make sure people understand, like, it was an interception, but it was during one-on-ones. You're supposed to. And Joe and Ryan Barnes played it perfectly. He still made him make a great play on it because of what Ryan.
There was only one pick during team.
But this was during one-on-one.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm just saying there was only one pick during team,
right?
And that was, I think, it was Drew Pine. He got picked by Joseph.
Yeah,
that was just a great play by Joseph.
But I think back to Ryan's point is, Ryan, there's a couple times when you throw that way. There's a couple times that I thought I didn't like Tyler's decision, but because he threw with conviction, that ball's not getting turned over.
Right.
I mean, there were several. I mean, especially when they were running red zone, right? Like a couple of those throws in the back of the end zone where you talked about, like, in between defenders, like he was letting it rip, man, and it was he was throwing with decent timing too. With it is why he was able to sneak it in there. But I think one of the best throws of the day was obviously the down the sideline to Styles, right, which hit in stride. And it was great coverage by Tariq Bracy, and it was just a perfectly placed ball. But then Mitchell Evans dropped a touchdown today, Brian, where he threw this thing right over the fingertips, man. I'm like, that's a tough throw, man. It's a really down the left sideline as well. So
he threw it over Chance Tucker. It went right over Chance Tucker's head, and it hit Evans in the face. Like, it literally hit him in the face, and he dropped it. But I mean, I don't think he was expecting it to get to him, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he was surprised that the ball got to him because it was perfectly placed ball. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a misconception through a lot of the fan base that Tyler Buchner is not this talented thrower. And man, I will tell you, he threw some today that were NFL throws. Like they were absolutely NFL throws. And he has a long way to go. There's no doubt.
Right.
But the fact that he had a couple struggles early throwing the football, didn't get off to the best start.
He had a couple early throws that were like, oh
yeah, like sailing a couple.
You know what we're talking about, right? During that, I think it was an early team period where he tried to throw an out cut and he dipped his arm and the ball just like, like it just kept. I thought it might have been up where y'all were. Like I was like waiting on Vince, like I got it. You know?
but I mean, even after that, man, like you saw again, it didn't waver his confidence at all. Even I put in like a little bit of on the message board. Even his misses late in the like scrimmage period, they were great misses, man. Like nobody was going to catch the football except for his players. Like I thought the ball placement down the stretch was really good for Tyler Buchner. And I thought the ball placement, and for the most part from Drew Pine, was good too. I think it's just very simply, Tyler came out swinging today, man. He came out swinging for the large majority of the practice. And now Drew, next practice, has to come back out swinging if he wants to make it a competition.
Do you know who threw with better ball placement today than I've ever seen him? And I was happy to see that today because that's my biggest concern from him, Steve Angeli. He looks smooth. I mean, he's always had like a really clean, compact throwing motion. You know, the ball doesn't really explode out of his hand, but it comes off nicely. The problem has always been his ball placement stinks.
Yeah.
He was putting them on some good spots today during team periods. I really liked what I saw from Steve Angeli today.
That last throw he threw, rolling to his left, back across his body. It was an impressive throw, man.
He had a couple nice throws on the run today.
Who is that, man?
Yeah. And I thought Ronnie Paulus threw a couple nice balls. Before we move on to him, Sean, you were going to say something about Steve Angeli.
Everything they said about Tyler was spot on. It was definitely, just today. We're speaking about today.
Just today. Right.
He was the better quarterback.
Drew could come out on Tuesday and outplay him, folks. I mean, we're just talking about today.
I will say this. Talent was never the issue. Talent was never the issue. The question I've always put out there, you have all the talent in the world. What's on the tape?
Right.
What's on the tape? Because what was on the tape last year is when you got the opportunity to throw the ball, there was inconsistency.
Right.
And what we saw in practice today was similar to what we saw last year. Middle of the field to his left, very good. When he has to throw to his right, it's all about footwork. And he doesn't get the same zip on the ball. And that's what you saw when both of those balls to the right.
Throws that sailed, both were correct. They were to the right.
That's a footwork issue. It's not an arm strength issue.
Right.
It's a footwork issue, and the same issue that led to the pick 6 against Virginia Tech. Same side of the field, same throw, pick 6. Easily correctable because it's all about technique, drop back, getting the ball out quicker. But like these guys said, there's no question from an arm strength standpoint that the kid can play. Now he just has to go out there. This is the greatest thing. The greatest thing for Tyler Buchner is being able to turn around and hand the ball off and be put in really good situations early in this season. That's the best thing that can happen to this kid. The worst thing would have been coming back with the same coaching at offensive line, the same issues, and putting him in positions to press and being 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 consistently. I don't think that's going to be the case. And another thing we saw, fellas, his escapability is he's going to make plays. He had
that's the thing. We didn't really see him running today.
And they didn't have it. That wasn't what they wanted him to do. Like that wasn't part of the practice. You know what I mean?
There was one play, Vince, where you said, he would have scored on that.
He got loose and he just decided to tuck it and go, and he went around the left side. And I believe it was Marist that was going to meet him out there. Marist is an amazing player, but in the open field, I'm going with 12. I'm sorry. Like he kind of put his left foot in the ground and then whoop. And granted, Marist, he held up because you're not going to lay out your quarterback.
Better not.
But if
not if you want to be on scholarship tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, right? But if it was live, I still got my money on Tyler Buchner. And there was another one where he kind of escaped the pocket, went high, and then he found a crosser and just on the money, just like a bullet. And that's what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
When he's outside the pocket, he can make plays.
I want to wrap up with this quarterback comment. I have to say, Steve Angeli, the first practice, I thought his ball placement stunk like it did in high school. Today was much better, but I'll say this: what I've seen from him in both practices, he is a calm looking freshman. Like normally freshmen everything just looks like fast and they're just like freaking out and and they're just run. Steve has a lot of work to do, but man, he is a calm look. Like it just, what I mean by calm is just like, who he reminds me of? He looks like Jack. I mean, he looks like Jack Cohn, just like from a presence standpoint. Like they're different players, but it's just kind of like, you're almost like, is he alive? Like because he's just kind of like just calm and just. He doesn't look like demeanor wise. He doesn't look like a freshman. You know who else doesn't look like he normally does from a demeanor standpoint? Is it me or did Tommy Reese look way more calm than he has in the past?
He was
Relaxed.
He was also
relaxed. Ryan, I
vocal.
think you just said. I think that's a much better word than calm. Relaxed. He looked really. He was still intense and still coaching, but just like.
But he was more vocal to me today too. Like like you could tell he was in control of what was going on. And like there was one time where he wanted to get Tyler. He's like, "Hey Ty, come on over here for a second." Like yeah, he was relaxed. He was.
Where in the past he would kind of meet him halfway, and he's like pissed off, and just, you know what I mean, like.
Yep. And I was actually really impressed with he was joking around with other guys like during FSA and. Yeah, he's
always kind of been that guy. It just kind of he would get a little too intense during practice.
It's different.
I think part of that has to do with just having the confidence you have in the guys around you. I think that's, to me, part of it's his third year now as a coordinator. I think there's a comfort level, but I also think part of it is like, it shows me that he has a lot of confidence in what's happening around him. So again, this is a staff that is very loud and vocal. The offensive staff, very loud and vocal, but it's constant teaching, constant teaching. Which I like. I want to talk about running back, guys. We'll go to receiver, but I want to talk about running back because my favorite part of today, I hated the fact that Chris Tyree wasn't out there.
Yep.
But at different parts of the practice, you're like, oh, Audrick's having the best day. Oh, no, that was a great play by Logan Diggs on the screen. Oh, wait, Jadarian Price is a monster. Like, you saw what, you know what I'm saying? Like, you saw today, like, yeah, this running back room's going to be a problem for people because Ryan, you thought Audric Estime just total package today. You thought, again, Chris Tyree, folks, today was not out. It's not a big deal. I think what Coach Freeman said, just like a little, just a minor thing, like a concussion or something like that. They just wanted to be precautionary. He was out there going through FSA. He was going through stretch. He looked fine. And if he had a major concussion problem, he's not out there going through stretch. They got him with a hoodie on and sunglasses, and he's chilling in the corner, right? But he wasn't doing that. But you thought Audric Estime had the best day of all the backs today.
I did.
I made sure, let's make people know. I challenged him to make sure it wasn't his New Jersey bias. I said, look, man, I need you to make sure it's not just because he's a Jersey kid.
Hey, man.
I need to know what's going on. And he assured me that it was not the case.
I wasn't pumping up Howard Cross earlier. That was Sean, right?
True.
I mean, you
stayed silent when I talked about Steve Angeli. I got you. Okay, I got you.
Hey, so Sean actually asked me about Estime today because of the New Jersey thing, and I actually didn't really know who Estime was in high school. I didn't really know anything about him until he decommitted to Michigan State and he came to Notre Dame. And I think that there's another misconception with him, I think, because he's a big back. He's 228 pounds. People think that he's a battering ram, which he can be. There's no doubt. But in my opinion, if anybody disagrees, please, I thought he was the most elusive back in the open field. Like, he was making guys look very silly in space. And then when they were doing the one-on-ones, I thought he looked fluid as a pass receiver, running routes and doing all that type of stuff. It looked uncommon, in my opinion, for 228 pounds. And I mean, he had the one play, Vince, right, where he was running the screen and it was just kind of, he turned around and didn't really run through the play. And it was just funky.
It was kind of a rookie mistake. It was a really good throw, actually. I mean, they had the defense completely fooled on that one. It was a great throw by Pine. Just kind of laid it up there for him. And if he catches it in stride, kind of over the shoulder a little bit, that's a touchdown. But he kind of turned around, and then he kind of got turned around even more, and the ball went over his head. But that's all coachable stuff. And guess what? He got coached up as soon as he came off the field. So
And he had barely played last year, obviously. Like, we only saw him in like a increased action in one game down the stretch.
He was a blocker in the times he got in, played a little bit of special teams. So we saw the one game got one carry in the bowl game, but then he had 7 against, I think it was like Navy.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, okay.
Because it's like because
This
what
is
I
your
saw,
fourth running back? Seriously?
Yeah.
really, I mean, because what I saw today is like Jadarian Price is one of those dudes where explosiveness, right? Like
Oh,
he's going to
see.
break. He's
You
going
know
to
how I'm
break
always
some
stealing your
angles.
thunder? You got me back today. I dig it. I dig it.
He's explosive, man. And then Logan Diggs, I really like. I say that he is a slippery runner. Like he just breaks some arm
definitely looked
tackles.
rusty, guys. Like Logan looked
bit,
like, and
little
what
bit.
they said, he's been actually had a hamstring injury, so he's just kind of now getting. He looked a little rusty, but then on that screenplay that he took for a
Looked
touchdown,
good.
first of all, great downfield blocking from Tosh Baker, and I believe it was Rocco. I think was the other guy down there that blocked the linebacker. It's one of the good plays Rocco had, but Tosh was about to hit a corner, and the corner just slipped.
Yeah, I bet
you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But Tosh, he was like 30 yards downfield, but Logan took that, spun around because the ball wasn't perfectly thrown, spun around, made a couple people miss, and turned the Jets on, and you're like, okay, yep, that's Logan Diggs.
Yeah,
And he showed the nimbleness, and then Jadarian Price, fellas, oh my gosh, that kid's burst is. I mean, there was a play. And I'd have to pull it up, but there was a play where he was running looked like he was running to the left on an inside zone and cut back, and then just planted about 3 yards behind the line and just exploded through, and it looked like two linebackers were going to converge on him, and then they just. By the time they got to him, he was gone.
It just made a noise. He made contact, and it made a noise that you're like, okay, they're wearing pads. This is good.
Yeah.
That's the sound you want to hear as a football coach. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was pretty.
He's got some juice, fellas. He's got some juice. And which one of you told me he had who was it that said he had a phenomenal catch today?
Yeah.
In the end zone.
Jadarian Price. Jadarian Price had that. Yeah.
That was another throw that Tyler just put it where no one else was going to get it. And I'm like, did he come down with it? And then we're all like, who is that? Jadarian Price making that catch? And it was just like, wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's a combination that you love to hear. That you'll love to hear for the next couple of years at Notre Dame, hopefully, man. He's very impressive. Juice, whatever adjective you want to use, a different energy, a different gear, whatever you want to say, he's different. And Brian, it goes back to what Dylan McCullough, said and told the media during the breakout sessions he said, yo, if I had a running back room perfectly set up, it would be the room I walked into. With the different sizes and different styles.
Yeah, they all do something different, man.
This is everything I would ask for in a running back room, and we saw it in action today. Yeah.
Receiver. Okay, let's talk a little bit about receiver position. We won't talk a ton about it. I just want to make a couple observations, guys. Number one, I love the coaching that they're getting. We talked a little bit about that earlier. We won't spend too much time on it. I really love it. And they're just scratching the surface. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done. I like the leadership that was being shown. Lorenzo Styles is going to be a guy. Didn't make a ton of plays in team, but you just see the athleticism and you see the skill set. But fellas, I got to talk about the burst that we saw from Braylon today. And we saw the play where he ran by Jaden Mickey. But the best part about that is that wasn't just a straight go route. He put a downfield move on Jaden Mickey.
Yep.
And you're like, I've never seen Braden Lindsey do that before.
And that's why he had just separation.
It was a stutter go, but it wasn't like he was running just like a really quick, and then bam, he was gone again, and Jaden Mickey had no chance. And this is a guy that every coach that I've talked to about Jaden Mickey's like, this kid can run. And Braden, I mean, he just crushed him. His burst today, and a lot of it's not just he's healthy and all that, but he is playing with a confidence that we haven't seen from Braden Lindsey in a couple years, fellas.
He looked like a different player, man. Like he looked like what you envisioned.
Physically too, Ryan.
Yeah. No, he was. I mean, he looked really strong. He looked explosive. It was just all there. Like this is what I had imagined Braden Lindsey would be for years right now. Like he just looked so much more confident in everything he was doing. It was awesome. And like I talked about in the beginning of the show, saw a contested catch from him early, which You just don't. You haven't seen it. You haven't seen it.
What was that? No, that was Styles. I'm thinking of. Never mind. What was the contested throw? Explain kind of what happened because I don't think I saw that one. Explain what happened.
It was the one where it was near this left sideline. The ball. It was kind of like a one-on-one.
And then he got
tipped, and then he dove to the ground, making the catch through contact.
Tariq Bracy got beat twice today on plays where his coverage was as good as it could be.
Yeah,
I mean, and here's the thing: it goes back to what Sean said earlier, and also what Ryan said too. But the quarterbacks were giving guys chances today too. Like, look, just give them a chance. And like the throw that Lorenzo, like I didn't think Lorenzo saw the ball until he just quickly just put his hands out and grabbed it. Like like
the deep one, yeah.
I didn't think he saw the ball. I thought Tariq was blinding him from where the ball was, but then he just went snatched it. And then the tip ball, it's like Tariq turned around, played both times. Tariq turned around and played the ball. He did exactly what you're taught to do. And it's just the quarterbacks are putting the ball out where, if you miss that I know what player you're talking about, Ryan. If the quarterback misses that by 3 inches, Tariq tips it and it's out of the focus. But because it was on the outside, Tariq was still able to kind of get a hand on it, but it stayed outside and Braden was able to catch it kind of falling down. That again, those are great throws, but man, those are the kind of plays you want to say, hey, man, this is what we want this receiving core to be. You can't just run, but can you make catches? And they look stronger. I mean, all of them. I mean, Lindsey, Styles, Joe Wilkins, just Colsey. Physically they're playing stronger as route runners.
And Colsey is playing more confident as well.
Right.
I mean,
because they had a penny on today. Did they say what?
Was it concussion? Jersey? Is that what I heard?
Okay, so that just means you can't do full contact,
right? But he was. I think he did. I don't think he was in.
He didn't do any team,
but he was in one-on-ones.
Right.
So there was contact there, but not like you don't want to send him over the middle or anything.
I thought he looked good going through drills.
Yes, absolutely. And he was getting a lot of praise from Coach Stuckey with the way he was going through those drills.
It was Well, I thought Colsey looked good, and then you mentioned, just to the coaching aspect again of it for a second, Joe Wilkins. I thought Joe's release package off the line of scrimmage, like I saw he was kind of mixing things up a little bit. Like you just hadn't seen a varied amount of releases. Like last year, it was like Kevin Austin was going to take one step outside and he was going to ride down the sideline. Like that was his release. You know what I mean? Like you saw inside releases, you saw stutters at the top of the route. Like you saw release packages today, in my opinion.
The one thing they still need to work on is they're still getting outside and staying outside on vertical releases. There was one play where Lorenzo beat a guy, real nice release, and he went outside but they got to learn this. So the next step for them is the stack part.
Back it up.
Right. But that's going to be the next step. But again, it was nice to see that. And, Sean, it's interesting. We talked about, Ryan talked about it with who was it that's talked about Dylan McCullough saying if he could have a running back room, this would be it. Who was that you, Sean, that talked about that?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Chancey Stuckey. I mean, Chancey Stuckey talked about like, this is what I want my receiving room to be. And today we saw a little bit of a glimpse of that diverse skill set that group has. Braden Lindsey and Lorenzo Styles look similar, but they're very different players. Same thing with Joe Wilkins and Chancey Stuckey.
We're still missing Avery Davis in the slot.
Right.
He's going to be there.
Yep.
You get Tobias Merriweather in the mix.
Yeah. Who made a couple plays today? Connor Radigan.
Made a heck of a play.
Yes,
he's a little more athletic than I thought.
Oh, he can play.
Yeah.
It was one of the catches of the day, man. The fade in the back of the end zone. Another good throw by Tyler, by the way.
He beat Mickey on
really
that,
nice
right?
catch.
Yeah.
Went
over the top. Over the top of him.
It was great catch.
For the rest of the practice, him and Mickey were going back and forth.
It was
Mickey
great.
goes back and forth with everybody. So.
Matt Salerno had a couple catches too, man. So
right.
It was good.
And those are going to end up being your 8th and 9th receivers this fall. That's the reason I'm bringing this up, right?
Right, and that's That's why I brought this question up, Brian, because I want to address it. What are your thoughts? All you guys, your thoughts on Torrey Phillips? We need a grad transfer at wide receiver.
I don't think they need it yet. I want to see how the spring continues to go. I am of the belief that if there is a position other than quarterback where there is a guy that is better than what you have, you are open to that conversation. I mean, that's just how you need to be. I mean, I don't think they need a grad transfer D-line, but if there's a kid that pops up in May that is better than the guys you have, then you look at them. If there's a receiver that pops up like, hey, this – if Marvin Mims decides after the spring he doesn't want to be at Oklahoma anymore and he wants to transfer, sorry guys, y'all got some competition in the fall. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality. I mean, that's where you need to be. I mean, and I said before, if the right quarterback wanted to come, but the right quarterback's not, he's not, that guy's not, I don't know if that guy's out there, and I don't think he's leaving Tuscaloosa last time I checked. So, I mean, I would always look to better my football team. There's no question.
Right.
I don't think it's a need
It's
yet.
not a need.
It's not a need yet.
It's an evaluation at the end of spring, because either way, it would be they wouldn't be able to transfer it until summer. So like, why is it a talking point now? We have to see how it kind of shakes out.
But I think that you could say that about a lot of positions, right? I mean,
now they are an injury away. If somebody goes down in the spring and they're going to be questionable for the fall, then it becomes a need.
For sure.
And it becomes a need. And a lot of it, because it has to do is like, look, you're going to have the 5 guys that are on scholarship now, right? And when I mean scholarship, I mean the guys that are traditionally on scholarship, the guys that were recruited here on scholarship. You're going to have those 5, plus you're going to have Avery Davis, plus you're going to have Tobias Merriweather. And I'm sorry, Tobias is a guy that you have to – he can help you next year. But then you got Salerno and Connor Radigan at 8 and 9. Now, do you ideally want to try to go into the Clemson game with Connor Radigan and Matt Salerno starting for you? No, but – they're a long way away from where that would have to be a problem.
Right. There's
what I mean?
5 guys got to get hurt. I mean, that's a lot of guys.
Right. So I'm not saying they're not going to need a receiver in the transfer portal. I just don't think that's a concern for me right now. I want to see the guys that they have now develop and let those guys kind of take their game to that next level. That's really what I want to see. So
as long as we stay canteen free, with the transfer portal.
Grad transfer. We had a fun conversation about Freddie Canteen and Cameron Smith last night. But like, to me, those guys that's not what I'm looking for.
No.
If it's going to be a Cam Smith or a Freddie Canteen, a guy coming off injuries, I don't know if that's necessarily what I'm looking for. If the kid from Johns Hopkins wants to transfer to Notre Dame and he knows he's not being promised anything, come on, dude. I'll take it. But it's not something that I necessarily see as a need right now. And sometimes if you take a grad transfer, unless he's a flat out dude, he may not find himself on the field, and then does it become contentious and create locker room issues? That I think about that too. So that's why I say, like, if Marvin Mims wants to transfer, okay, sure, buddy, let's have that conversation, right? If Jackson Smith and Jigba's like, Columbus is a little too far south for me, I want to go a little bit more north to South Bend. All right, buddy, come on, But I like where this group is at. My focus right now is like, coach these kids up, because there's some talent there.
Yep.
And but this is the concern at Notre Dame, is this is where Torrey's coming from, or this is where I could maybe agree with Torrey a little bit. The problem is, as we talked about the other day, the margin for error is really thin. And like Jaden Thomas is a guy that we've heard a lot about. I didn't see a lot today from him. He just was kind of okay, solid, But again, that's your 5th guy right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? He may be 6th or 7th in the fall. So if a guy like Jaden Thomas is going to be your 5th, 6th, or 7th guy, you're okay, but you can't sustain any other injuries. Did anybody pay any attention to tight end today? I did not.
I noticed that it was the only thing I noticed was the guys who were kind of rotating in with the first team. Obviously, it was Michael Mayer, Mitchell Evans, and Kevin Bauman. Like, it was
that's all they have right now.
But those were and then I'm honestly, what was his name? Charlie Selna made a couple of nice plays.
Charlie's a tall dude, man.
Yeah, he made some nice plays today with the second group.
89, right?
Yeah, 89.
I thought I was like, wait a minute, hold on, 89. I had to do a roster check earlier. Is Brock Wright working out? Like, are they giving him a chance to get some reps? Like, there's some scouts trying to check him out.
I thought he was Mitchell Evans for a second, because the 88, right?
Yeah, he's tall. He's kind of tall. Yeah. Hey, look, I don't know, but I want to see more Davis Sherwood blocking on the edge against Jordan Masello.
I love it, man.
They actually have 2 guys listed as fullbacks.
Yeah,
now.
I saw that.
That's an actual thing, and that's the first time. That's why they handed out new rosters, was because they've got guys listed as.
They handed out new rosters, and I don't have one yet. Like 6 hours after practice is over, Vince, you and I are going to have a conversation.
We told Vince to do it, and he didn't listen to us.
Dude, we live in the same neighborhood. Come on, dude. We're going to have a little come to Jesus conversation early. Man, Ryan threw you under the bus hard,
Man,
like hard. Like he gave you that quick shove as the train is about to go by. That's rough.
I'm gonna scan it right now.
It wasn't true.
Right here.
Brian, here's my takeaway from the tight ends though. Here's the actual takeaway, and this is serious. Michael Mayer might be the best player in college football.
Oh my goodness,
that is my takeaway, man. He was
You're not wrong.
He was so impressive.
He's so good that I don't even pay attention to him anymore in practice.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing though, is that in my opinion, I came away impressed by Kevin Bauman today. I thought that he had some nice catches away from his frame, really physical dude out of his stem. I thought that he showed a lot to me. Mitchell Evans didn't pop as much for me today personally, and he had the one drop that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But I thought Bauman had a really solid day, honestly.
Yeah.
He did well.
Good.
Their tight ends move really well.
Yeah.
And I would just like to say this. I am a huge fan, and I mean a huge fan of Michael Mayer. I would just like to say that.
He's a beast.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to say.
I thought you were gonna say something.
Never heard of him.
I thought you were gonna go somewhere else with that one, Sean.
No, I thought they didn't catch it. Brian missed it.
I
Missed
caught
what?
it. I caught it.
Missed what?
I'm a huge fan.
I said I'm a huge fan, and I mean a huge fan
Oh.
of
Got
Michael Mayer.
Of
I
Michael
see.
Mayer. Yeah,
I
thought
see
you were
where you're
going
going now.
different route.
I love
there.
me some me. I missed it. That's my bad.
That's
Oh, I get it now.
the best
Yeah,
take
I'm a
ever.
huge fan of Michael Mayer and me as well. I'll say this about Michael Mayer. I did feel like they were not trying to force the ball to him in practice today, and that is a good thing.
No, I agree
I think
with
the
that.
mistake you can make in practice 5 is like, look, Michael Mayer's a dude. By the time you get to the fall, let's see what some of these other guys can do.
Right.
Let's see what the receivers can do. Let's see what the backs can do. Let's see what the other tight ends can do. That's
Yeah.
oh yeah. Now Vince sends me the new roster. Yeah, a little late for that there, Chief.
Hey, you got it. All right.
Yeah. Let guys, anything else about the offense you want to talk about before we quickly transition over the defense?
Just kind of like to connect with the Michael Mayer story, and Ryan could talk about this. They had, I think it was like the third session, and they were doing one-on-ones, tight ends against linebackers. And boy, oh boy, I felt bad for every linebacker that had to come up when it was Michael Mayer's turn.
There was one time it was Jordan Patelho against him, and I was like, come on. That's not even fair. It turned out exactly how you think it would turn out.
And Marcus Freeman is like right there,
right,
kneeling down, like watching the reps. And I'm like, oh boy, they're going to hear about this.
Yeah.
The linebackers are going to hear about this.
Right. It was, he's, he's pretty good. I thought the linebackers had some problems today in coverage. I thought they had problems. And part of it's just like we know Bo Bauer can run, right? There was a play where Jadarian Price ran just like a little stutter seam, and he just blew past Bo Bauer.
Yeah.
And we've seen Bo Bauer run with Power 5 running backs. We've
Yes.
seen him run on wheel routes with guys that can run.
Yeah.
And Jadarian just and Bo, it's not like the Bo didn't know it was coming. He was waiting on him, and he's open and running. Jadarian just ran past him.
No,
I'm like, this guy
different.
can fly.
I don't blame Bo.
Yeah, and that's my point. I'm not saying like we've
I
seen
don't know if Bo has seen anybody. Chris Tyree is fast.
But Jadarian's about an inch and a half taller than Chris Tyree.
Yeah, but Jadarian is just different. His movement is
burst.
not that
He's got that Dex Williams first step burst.
Yeah.
That's what I like about Jadarian Price. Like whatever speed is 4.42, 4.52, whatever, 4.62. I don't know what it is, but he is full speed now. And that's the thing. But like you watch that and you're like, Bo Bauer just like had no chance. I thought the only guy that athletically I thought looked good. There's two guys that I thought athletically held their own in practice today and for the linebackers. No, it's Prince Collie and Maris Luafau. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only guys that could run with the tight ends and running backs, especially the running backs. Like the running backs, like Audric was putting moves on dudes and getting open. The only guy he couldn't get open against was Prince and Marist. You know, and that's the thing is like those two cats, there's a clear difference in speed and athleticism of the returners. We didn't see a lot of the freshmen today. Ryan, I had a couple observations about him we'll get to here in a second, but it was mostly the returners, but they had some issues running with some of those guys because, and part of it is just there's some it's what we talked about, guys. We've said this before. There's some speed on this Notre Dame offense.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some cats can run. There's no question about it. But
guys, do you remember who Aldrich Estimate lit somebody up? It was a running play, and he got like 3 or 4 yards, and somebody met him in the hole to the outside, and all you saw was Aldrich Estimate come out of the pile, and you just heard this loud crack, just like pow, helmet and pass hit, and it was like, okay. And then Aldrich Estimate just comes out of there full speed. And I thought it was the safety that tried. Maybe it was DJ Brown that came up and tried to hit him, but it just didn't.
Maybe Audric got him back a little bit for that cheap shot he took on Lorenzo Styles. It's like Audric's Audric's that dude's like taking the mental notes. You know, it's like, what was it, like Billy Madison, like that dude that's got like his little hit list.
He's got his list.
Like, okay, DJ, you cheap shot my receivers. Okay, I'm gonna add you to the list. Wait till I get you in space. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Audric's going to be that dude. He's going to be that dude. There's no question.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a similar role to what we saw from Tony Jones in 2017, but he's a more powerful runner than Tony was. You know, and that's not a knock on Tony. Tony's playing National Football League. Tony's a good football player. You guys know I'm always more explosive, more powerful than version of Tony. I don't know if he's quite the pass catcher Tony. He's not the pass catcher Tony was. I mean, Tony could catch the football. And not that Audric can't, but it's like Tony was better. But he's a more explosive version of what Tony was. And that's the role I think he'll play. And I can't wait to see. This running back room, guys. Like today, we kind of saw it. Like we feel like, okay, they can all play. They can all. I mean, they can all play. We didn't even get a chance to see Chris Tyree. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get back to defense, guys. Biggest takeaway for me at linebacker, I had 2. Number 1, Maris Luafau is a freaky athlete. I mean, he can get to full speed in a hurry. His change of direction is outstanding, and he has exceptional range. Is anyone disagree with any of those 3 observations?
Never heard of him.
Felt that
Never
way
heard of him.
a long
time.
This
guy next to me is like the biggest Maris Luafau fan in the world, so he's trying to be nice and not look like he's too much on the bandwagon. That was good. His coverage was good. He had some. I mean, his. I see what they're saying about the pressures because when he blitzes, I mean, he gets through that hole in a hurry.
Closing
and he gets skinny. Like he's got this weird. I mean, he's a skinny guy anyway. He has this weird ability to get to these like little tiny holes, you know, as a pass rusher. But the other takeaway I had was Bo Bauer just does not seem to have gotten any better from a decision making standpoint than where he was.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing.
It's one practice.
I know,
right?
It's still disappointing.
We're trying not to put but there was one play where, see if you guys remember the play I'm talking about. The offense was running to the left, and the whole line and the backs looked like it was clear that they were going this way, and Bo just ran like to the C gap in the opposite direction. I have no clue what he was doing. There's no way that's what like maybe he was being blitzed there, but it wouldn't have fit with what just happened in front of him. And of course, what happens? They cut right up the middle for a big I think that was Audric. That was one of Audric's big runs, right?
I think so.
It just leaves this big hole. I mean, it's just like, wow, dude. Like, I mean, you're a 5th-year senior, brother. You can't continue to make those kind of mistakes.
It looked like he was cross keying against like double wing for a second, and then he just ran heavily away from his gap. It was so odd.
There's a couple. There's just too many plays in practice where you see that. And from a 5th-year senior with his playing time, you can't. Now, again, the thing I love about Bo is when he made that mistake 100 miles an hour. I mean, it's like he plays hard. But he's just got to stop making those mistakes. He's too talented not to be able to be a guy that plays more. But you just can't. You can't have a middle linebacker that makes those mistakes. You just can't. And that's got to be frustrating. That's got to be frustrating for them.
Brian, so, you know who impressed me was first time I had seen him in person or just live reps. Really, dude, Prince was flying.
Knew that was coming, man. Yeah.
I mean, just getting downhill, man. Most explosive linebacker they have.
They've got to find a way to get him on the field.
Ryan, you know what I noticed today? He was doing a lot of this today, and I don't mean like talking trash, but like talking to like he looked like he was showing a little bit of command of what's around him. Did you guys see that? Like he was kind of not chirping, but like talking to the D line and talking to the other linebacker. Like either he was asking a question, which again is a good thing because like I'm not sure. Let me communicate. And then there was times where it looked like he was actually communicating, like in a call standpoint. That is not something like when Prince was on the field last year. You kind of look around like, am I lined up correctly? Like, okay, he looked confident today, fellas. And Sean, you mentioned him to me today too, so y'all understand what we did today. The reason that Sean talked more early and hasn't talked as much later, maybe why Ryan didn't talk a lot early and he's talking more now, is I had guys focusing on kind of certain things. So like Ryan was watching, everybody watched a little bit of everything, but just so you understand what's going on. But Sean, when you and I were talking about the line play, I asked you, did any of the linebackers pop? And before I could even like finish my sentence, Sean's like just jumps into this Prince Collie conversation. You know what I mean? So Sean, it sounds like Prince kind of jumped out to you as well today, because he plays at a speed that him and Maris played a different speed than any of the other returning linebackers.
Well, we said it last year in the spot plays. When he did get in, you could see he was thinking. Like you could literally see in his movement, he's thinking.
Like if it was an old school commercial, you'd see like the wheels turning in his head, right?
And now he's just going. Like whatever he sees before the snap, he trusts it. And another thing, Al Golden was behind the defense, and he kept stressing every play, communicate. He was talking to the safeties. He was talking to the linebackers. Communicate. And I think that's what you were talking about with Prince Collie. He has that confidence. He has that trust. He knows what he's seeing. He knows what he's looking at. And now he's more vocal about it, not just about his responsibilities, but making sure everybody else knows, look, this is what we're seeing, and this is what we're supposed to be doing. When you see something like that, and you see that type of stride being made by a young man, that sets the tone for the freshmen. Like the freshmen are watching him, saying we're where he was a year ago.
Yeah.
So if we trust and put in the same work, we'll be right where he is.
Yeah.
And they're actually getting a head start on Prince, because Prince wasn't an early enrollee last year.
Exactly.
So they're getting a head start on him. I wanted to ask this question. Ethan O'Connor asked this, and I wanted to ask you guys this, because you all got to see Prince like in person, like really up close. The question from Ethan is, what position could Prince play with Marist at will? So my question is I mean, in theory, right? Just in theory, the two inside linebacker positions are interchangeable. I mean, in theory, you should be able to play Will and Mike. But of course, you have to have the body type and the skill set and the pop to be able to play Mike as well. From what you guys saw today, working the pads, working the run game, seeing the body type, if for some reason they've got to just get Prince on the field more, could he be like Tavon Coney was in 2017 and play, just physically? Again, I don't know if he can handle it mentally, still a young kid, but just physically, do you guys see him being able to move over to Mike and be able to play there in this time? I mean, obviously in the Manti Te'o 2012 defense, you're not putting Prince Collie at Mike, right? But in this defense, can you guys see that, Ryan? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I do, because so if it comes down to you need to get him on the field with Maris Loifau, man, I want to keep Maris at will, just because I think that the working in pursuit is what Maris does well. And what I saw from Prince, I felt like as soon as he saw it, man, I thought he saw it pretty quick. He was getting downhill and he was coming with force. So yes, I think he can play Mike. I absolutely do. I think that he is. I mean, you prefer him at will, right? But like he's 230 plus pounds at like 6'2". Like he's a pretty densely built guy. He's got more weight on him than Maris does, and Maris is probably an inch and a half taller. So yes, I think he can play Mike, and I think those guys can be interchangeable. And out of the two, if it's Maris and it's a Prince Collie combination, I think that Prince is more of a downhill thumper comparative to a Maris Loifau. So yes, I do think he can.
Because obviously right now with JD out, JD took some one-on-ones, but like you could see he couldn't even press because he's got his hand in the cast. It's like, just get him out of there. Like, but with working with the Tuesday, Mike linebacker was Junior Tuihalamaka. Yeah. Anybody see anything from Junior working out today? Obviously people want to know about what the freshmen are going on.
He didn't jump out of making anything negative. That was like when he was on the field, it was kind of like, okay, we notice he's on the field, but he's not jumping out because he did something wrong.
He didn't look uncomfortable.
He didn't look uncomfortable. And it was a shock that he was the freshman that was on the field. Like, if you had asked someone, out of all the freshman linebackers coming in, who do you think is going to get on the field first or get the more reps? I think most people would have cast their vote for a Jalen Sneed or maybe even a Josh Burnham. And I think is it an advantage? You guys let me know. Playing the mic in high school and being responsible for calls as he was at the middle linebacker position, does that give him more versatility and a better understanding of taking that next step, especially as an early enrollee, rather than a guy like Jalen Sneed who played all
everywhere.
They played him everywhere. They played him at safety. They played him at outside linebacker. He lined up at middle linebacker. He never got a chance to really settle in and just play the game. And I think Junior, all the other guys that come in at linebacker, they were versatile guys because of the athletic ability. And that's the way their teams used him. Junior was the inside guy. That's what he was. That's what he's been. And I think comfortability is what you're talking about. I think it helped him to be more comfortable, come in, and be a little bit more impressive than some of the other freshmen.
I don't know if I would say it helps him with versatility, but I think it helps him with the fact that you have to communicate. I mean, he's coming in knowing that, like, I've got to talk. There's going to be a comfort level there. I think that certainly helps in that regard. And he didn't make any bad plays, didn't make any great plays. He looked comfortable.
Yeah.
I thought the guy that had the flashes for me today was Nolan Ziegler. I thought athletically he pops. I mean, and the thing about Nolan is Nolan doesn't always know what he was doing, but unlike Jalen and Josh, if he does everything 100 miles an hour, even when he messes up.
Yeah.
He looks a lot like, he reminds me a lot, Ryan. I don't know if you're going to like me saying this. He reminds me a lot of Marist as a freshman. He's a bigger version, but just like he may not always know where he's going, but he's going to get there fast.
Yeah.
That's what I saw from Nolan.
I'm so upset with that comparison.
How dare you compare anyone to Marist?
Oh, man. It's funny though. I think the point, and Sean, it's a fascinating question because, like Brian said, I was going to say, like, obviously the communicating aspect, but I think long term playing multiple positions on the high school level does help you because you just kind of have a better understanding of what's going on around you, right, from the back to the front. So I think there's merit to both sides of the coin. I think that what Junior has going for him is, I don't think any of them looked out of place. No. I think that you're looking at Jalen Sneed and Burnham specifically, though. They need to develop physically. Like, they're skinny guys for their sizes, right? Like, they need to get bigger. Nolan Ziegler, I think, flashed because he has some just natural instincts in the pass game. Like, he is a good coverage player right now. And I think that he could eventually be, maybe not this year, maybe sophomore year, but like, I think he could be that matchup dictator against big slots or tight ends. Like, I think he could kind of be a little bit of an eraser in that regard. Junior, on the other hand, that kid's 240 pounds already, right? Like, he was ready-made to come onto a college football field from a physical perspective. So I think that's why maybe you're seeing early transition. Is the upside as much as the other three? No, not in my opinion. But the short term, he was kind of just more ready to come right in right now.
Yeah. And physically, especially, he looks as big as any, if not bigger than anybody they have at linebacker. And it's not a bad big. It's like a Manti big. Like, Manti was always big, right? Even when he was listed at like 225, he looked bigger than everybody else. Just a big, broad-shouldered kid. I'll tell you something right now, guys. I think that when you talk about Nolan Ziegler, I think when I look at him, he kind of seems to me as a rover. He's playing Will right now, but as a potential rover, I could see him being sort of a in between Drew Tranquil and Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, meaning he's a little bit more rangier than Drew is in space, and he's got some of Jeremiah's like coverage. He's more of a cover player than Drew was. Like, Drew was more of a hook curl, flat. He wasn't doing a lot of man coverage, which is why ultimately you end up moving him inside. Jeremiah could kind of do those things, and I thought he kind of brings a little bit of that versatility there, which then fits really well at the Will too. So I didn't see it. I didn't see anything of what I saw. I didn't see anything from Jalen Sneed. Literally nothing. Like, not like he didn't do well. I didn't see Jalen Sneed today. Did you guys get a chance to see anything from Jalen Sneed today?
Not any clips.
I don't remember seeing him in team.
I saw one play where he's playing at Rover, and I thought he did a pretty nice job working from the backside on an inside zone. So it was away from him, and then he kind of worked back inside, and he was in on the play. And I was like, oh, who's 17? And then that was the only reason. But like, physically, no, nothing really popped today from him.
So we're gonna wrap it up with the secondary. I kind of find it funny when we put the receiver video out today, and receivers have some plays that it immediately turns into, well,
of course,
suck, right?
If you can't be negative, then what? Then there's no other feeling.
Well, no,
to
it's
have.
not that.
I know.
It's this thing of it's like if the offense does well, that means the defense sucks. If the defense
vice
does well, means the
versa,
offense
yeah.
sucks. I thought we saw both units making plays today. So, guys, I want to bring up this guy first. I didn't see a lot from him today, meaning I just literally did not see much of him. But talking to sources, the big question for me was coming the year was what version of Brandon Joseph are we going to get? Are we going to get the All-American 2020 version? Or are we going to get the okay but inconsistent 2021 version?
So yeah,
I'm not done.
Oh, you
yet.
got a question? Okay,
No.
I got comments.
I'm going to ask you guys what you saw because I didn't see a lot of him. My sources have told me coming into today that he's looked like a flat out dude. Like just now again, that's just who knows? It could be hype. Is that source someone that is spot on from what you guys saw today? What did you see from Brandon Joseph? Did he look more like the guy that was a beast in 2020 that had like 6 picks in 7 games? Or is he just kind of a good player? Ryan, I'll start with you because I know you've seen a lot more of Brandon in the past than we all have. Well, Sean, you've seen a lot of Brandon, but than me and Vince have had from at Northwestern. What did you see first? And then we'll go to Sean and then to Vince to get your opinions on what you guys saw from Brandon Joseph today.
So yeah, I said Michael Mayer I thought was the best player on the field, obviously, right? From either side. I think there's a very clear argument that you could say Brandon Joseph was the second best from everything I saw. He was just consistent all the way through, never got beat. The interception was fantastic on that play. Like this kid's ball skills and just reactionary quickness is fantastic. He's got great eyes. And I think we're getting the 2020 version. I have been high on Brandon Joseph for a couple years. I think it's going to be surprising to some because Kyle Hamilton was a great player and he's going to go top 10 in the draft. I think that you're going to see a lot of things in coverage this year where you're going to be like, we're kind of as good or maybe better on the back end at safety. That's what I see with Brandon Joseph.
I will double down on that. and I might say something that a lot of people might take and run to message boards with because it might seem blasphemous.
No way.
It might seem blasphemous.
Is someone committing soon?
5-hour show.
Dante's committing on March 29th. No, it's April 23rd.
Brandon Joseph makes others better around him. He might not necessarily be the top 5 pick in the NFL draft, but his impact and how he impacts the others around him, I think is a little bit better than the previous guy. And that just bringing everybody in, I don't want to get into it.
Can I ask you this, Sean? So are you saying this? Like Kyle individually was a tremendous player.
Absolutely.
He did freaky things.
Yes.
What are you guys? So it sounds like what you guys are saying is like his style of play is more like Alohi. And what I mean by that is, let me explain. Not that their style of play, like how they play, like his athleticism, but like the thing about Alohi, he was so communicative, he was so instinctive that like he made sure not only was he making plays, but he was making sure everybody else was where they needed to be. And that's the greatest thing that Alohi brought to the table. And then, of course, you always could trust that he was going to do his job. Are you saying it's more like that, Sean? Or, I mean, is that kind of the way you're going with it?
It's almost like, I'll give you a perfect example. I think it was the very first play of scrimmage period, early. And they tried to throw a pass inside, and Jaden Mickey broke it up. And Jaden Mickey just lets out this big scream. And the first person to walk up to him was Brandon Joseph. Like, yeah. And it was like, that's that energy. And you watch Brandon Joseph, he's on the back end, and he's talking too. Maybe not as outwardly as Jaden Mickey, but he's talking to guys. He makes the interception, he's talking. He knocks down a pass, he's talking, but he's doing it in a different way. But everyone else is included in his greatness, and you don't feel like that he just stands out above everybody else. For me, he's a little bit more infectious to the entire defense. Cal was just head and shoulders like he's the best player on the defense. You know he is. And I don't know, because I won't go this far. Because I don't think Cal freestyled and just did what he wanted to do.
They put him in position to do that. That's
Yeah.
how he was used within the defense. It's not
Yeah.
like he did it. They used Kyle's ability to be a great playmaker, and they allowed him to do that. Like that was part of the defense. Yes.
So, and this might be relational because they have a previous relationship. Ryan, you can jump in and add to or feel free to disagree. Vince, you as well. Houston looks better playing next to him. Like when I watch them as a combination, I'm like, okay, this combination looks better than the combination of Hamilton and Houston. And it might be that someone else has improved and gotten better.
Sure.
And it might be just the relationship has a connection there that previously wasn't there with the other guy. But for me, watching them today, watching how they interacted, and it wasn't really, it was kind of like a look at each other. It wasn't even like talking and a lot of pointing. It was just like play, and they both were in positions. I thought Houston Griffith had a pretty decent day.
Yeah.
I really did.
I agree.
I didn't even see him out there. I didn't even know he was out there.
He was out there next to Joseph the whole time.
The whole time.
And they rotated between second team and first team, but
Yeah.
together.
Together.
From what I remember.
Yeah.
They were together pretty much the whole time. And then Ramon and was
BJ.
it? Yeah.
Ramon and BJ.
Yep. They were rotating together. So they
Yeah.
got them kind of in pairs. But no, I agree with everything both of these guys said. And
So you agree Brandon Joseph's better than Kyle Hamilton?
Well,
Nobody said that.
Look, that's how it's going to be on the message board, guys.
Here.
Sean,
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, because of how you just framed it, not because of how we framed it.
the last hour and 45 minutes don't even count. It was just the last 90 seconds. That's all that matters now. But here, I'm gonna just add on to what both of them said. At the end of practice, he was also catching punts, and I think that's exciting too.
John, you were saying he was doing stuff like he was like kind of showing off out there.
He caught one ball with one hand, one with the other, and then tried to catch a third one in between.
Like this. Yeah.
You
know what else I love? Sean told me this. Sean said that Jadarian Price was back there catching punts too. That made me really happy.
Lorenzo Styles too. Lorenzo Styles was catching punts too. Yep.
Yeah. Dig that. What did you? Anything else you guys saw from the other safeties that before we kind of transition to cornerbacks?
Other than one of them almost losing their scholarship today? Nah.
Yeah. So go ahead and talk about that.
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
Yeah. I saw that clip. That was that made me a little
yikes.
Are we supposed to talk about that?
It was a practice.
I mean, we were all there. We all saw it.
It did happen.
It definitely happened.
Like, it wasn't like things were like chippy. Like, there was no precursor to this. Like, it wasn't like things were chippy. Just going through the scrimmage. And I think did he run a crossing route?
Just like a normal, Lorenzo ran just like a normal crossing route.
And the ball was just a little high, but you saw.
And behind too.
Behind him. Yeah.
That's which meant it made him even less saw what was happening.
Yeah.
But the message the entire day was take care of each other.
Right.
Stay up.
Right.
Like even when guys came together, it was like we saw a bunch of times where guys pulled off, where they had opportunities to lay a hit on someone. And for some reason, we haven't seen them lay a hit like this in a game in years.
Yeah.
But he decides today in a practice
when a ball wasn't even nearby, like it was literally a throwaway ball.
Yeah, he decides to hit Lorenzo Styles, and the place just immediately got
silent. Like they turned off the music. Like the music went off. Like
a screech. Like,
yeah,
right?
seriously.
And you can hear Styles on the ground grunting.
Yes.
Like, oh.
And they're like, turn the music back on.
Exactly.
Like, turn the music up. Turn the music up. Because no one needs to hear that.
Right.
And it was just like the team knelt down, players knelt down.
I was nervous. Everybody
was nervous. Because I'm thinking, my whole thought is, I hope it's not a leg.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take anything besides
Like he was
that.
planted and got hit or something
Right.
like that.
No, I thought it was like a broken arm or something. For a
Yeah, 'cause it
second,
was
man.
upper body.
Like
Like,
he was writhing. I mean, he was
Yes.
like rolling around. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And
He came back. That was the nice thing. Just so people know, he did come back.
Yeah.
He ended up being fine.
And he walked off.
Oh, he was ticked off.
He was mad, and like DJ tried to go over and like
I'll say
I'm sorry.
DJ immediately went over to
He
Lorenzo
did.
when he's on the ground. And what I also liked, here's two things I like. Number one, DJ immediately knew I screwed up.
Yep.
And he immediately went over to Lorenzo trying to be like, hey man, are you okay? The second thing I liked was the offensive lineman came over and were like, get the freaking heck out of here. Like, remember, Vince, you and I would complain about that in shows last year?
Yep.
Like in practice or in games when like a guy would get hit and he'd be on the ground and the other team would be there and like the Notre Dame offensive lineman just kind of stayed where they were.
Yeah.
There was nobody like, hey, go get your, like, you gave up a sack and the guy's, hitting Jack Cohn. You go over there and you handle your bit, defend that player. Immediately, I think it was Blake was the first guy over there.
Shocker.
Now, keep in mind, Blake was the furthest offensive lineman from the play.
Yep, because it was
right?
about
'Cause it
15
happened on
yards
the left
downfield
side.
on the left
And
side.
Joe Walt got there quick, and they both were like, like immediately, like, hey, you're my teammate, so I'm not going to rock you like I would have a different color uniform on, but I'm going to tell you right now, you better get out of our space right now.
Well, and
I like that.
And after Lorenzo got up, DJ went over to him and he tried to put his arm around him and everything. And Lorenzo was like, get away from me.
No parts
I want to kill you right now. Like, just chill. And like, you could tell he was not a happy man. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all.
But I mean, it was a bad play. You can't do that. You're a fifth year senior. But again, he immediately knew it. It wasn't
absolutely right.
It
was no malicious intent behind it.
No.
I mean, and I don't think anybody would believe that there was. It was just unnecessary.
And even with that made DJ feel even worse.
Yeah.
When Lorenzo did that, when he tried to come to him a second time once he got up, DJ just like lifted his helmet and put his head down and walked to the sideline. And I think it was Mickens that met him and was like, dude, it's okay.
Right.
Like, we know you're not trying to hurt him. Like, you made a mistake.
Yeah. Right.
He's good. Now that we know he's good, just
got to play on. Got to play on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
On a positive note, outside of that incident, you asked about safeties, Brian. I thought Ramon Henderson looked really explosive, and I thought he looked really loose on the back end. He wasn't tested at all, but like when you just saw him doing the drills, like I just saw the hip flip and just kind of the transitions. I'm like, this kid's loose, man. Like he is a really rangy guy back there. So he didn't really get a lot of action to be tested deep down the field, but I think there's also a reason that he didn't get tested down the field at all. So.
Let's talk corners, fellas.
All right.
First of all, I thought Clarence Lewis is noticeably thicker this year. Definitely he's kind of getting that, okay, he's a junior now. He's been in the program 3 years. He's looking more like a veteran physically. I thought his press technique was better today. I thought he was a problem for the receivers at times. Like they had to really work to beat him in press. I was encouraged by that. He still just doesn't have the great long speed. That's just going to be a problem. But I thought his movement today and his effectiveness today, I thought this was a good, solid practice from Clarence Lewis. What say you fellas?
I thought it was one of the best I've seen Clarence, to be honest. I thought he was pretty sticky for the most part, especially you didn't really see him get tested too much deep, but like short to intermediate, I thought he was really solid all the way. He was physical, like you said. But so I was honestly one of my big notes in my pad. I just wrote that I was actually like kind of encouraged by what I saw from Clarence Lewis today.
Here's also what was encouraging, Ryan. I was really nervous about how Clarence is going to be this spring mentally because of how his season finished. I mean, look, we've seen it with Gary Gray. We saw it a little bit Tariq Bracy in 2020, where sometimes when a cornerback has a game like Clarence had against Oklahoma State, it can mess with you for a while. It didn't. I mean, he's fine. He's fine, and that's important. He's fine. It looked like he's been putting in work this offseason. I mean, that's the thing for me. The biggest takeaway was just like he just looked like, okay, he looked as filled out as the safeties were. I'm not trying to make any statements like he needs to play safe. I'm just saying like he looked like he's had a really good offseason in regards to building his body up. No question about it. Let's talk about the other corners. I thought the corner that had the best day today of like, especially the younger guys, I thought Clarence was more consistent, Ryan, but I thought the guy that made the most plays at corner was Ryan Barnes. I thought he was really good
smooth.
today, and not just in one-on-ones, but in team and different periods. Like he looked really fluid. Like you just don't see 6'3" guys that are that can flip their hips that easily. That he showed, and his footwork was really good. I mean, he was talking about sticky in coverage. He was real sticky in coverage. He got matched up against a tight end once, and I'm like, what safety was that? I think I was all over him. And then you look and you're like, oh, that was Ryan Barnes. I thought Ryan had a really good – they were actually playing him to the field as well today.
Yes, they were.
Which I thought was interesting because they had said they were going to keep him in the boundary. But so if they're putting him to the field today, that tells me that they're like, okay, that they want to see more of him. He worked with the ones almost the whole practice, and Tariq got some a little bit of work outside as well with the ones. But guys, I thought Ryan in individual and in team, I didn't see him in 7-on-7. But in individual and team, I thought Ryan Barnes was the most impressive cornerback that I saw today. What say you guys? Right, Vince, let's start with you.
No, I just thought he looked smooth. I thought it didn't feel like the moment of being with the ones was too big for him, which I think is important because in my opinion, there's a battle for the corner position opposite Cam Hart. And I thought he handled today very, very well. I was very impressed by what he was able to do today. And I was wanting to see Ryan Barnes last year, to be honest with you, based on the limited stuff we got to see in practice. I was always wondering kind of where he was, right? And he was given an opportunity now. He's running with the one since Cam Hart is out. And he should be considered in a battle for the other spot, in my opinion. I think he's that good. He clearly showed he can play field. And we know he could play boundary. So cross-training him like that, I think is a great move as well. I like what he did.
I think it unlocks possibilities too. If he's a guy that ends up being the starter opposite, even though we just kind of talked that Clarence had a really nice day overall. I mean, if Ryan Barnes ends up being the majority of these snaps on the other side, I mean, we can forget the field boundary stuff at that point, right? With 2 6'2" corners, it's left, right at that point. Like it's interchangeable. And I think that's where you want to go. I mean, we talk about the Cincinnati ties with Marcus Freeman. I mean, Sauce Gardner played into the boundary a ton, but like you would have been fine with Kobe Bryant playing in the boundary as well. So I think they want to be interchangeable in the secondary. And I think that's where that possibility could go with a guy like Brian Barnes potentially.
I think another thing too, guys, and Sean, we'll kick it to you here in a second, but I think another thing too is even if you still want to start Clarence, because the staff likes Clarence a lot, and there are some teams where having a guy like Clarence who's, especially he's more physical and smart, you want to have him in there. But if Ryan can step up, number one, you can rotate him at both spots as part of a rotation, and Clarence Lewis is going to go from being a starter to not playing. He's going to play. But you can now use Ryan to play both spots. But you can also say, hey, there's going to be some reps or there's going to be some matchups where like, hey, this isn't a Clarence matchup. So, hey, let's play Ryan Barnes more. And I think that's a big thing too is, look, Clarence Lewis is going to play this year. And he should. He's a good football player.
Yeah, right.
But there's going to be some matchups that just don't favor his skill set. And I think Ryan stepping up is going to be an important part to that. Sean, what did you see from Ryan today?
Same thing these guys saw. And just for me, this practice was very settling at a position that I was unsettled about going into this practice. It was just one of the positions that I was like, yo, I'm worried about C. Lou. But once again, going back to what you said about C. Lou, and I told you this, I said the best job of coaching that I saw from Marcus Freeman up until this point was his comments about Clarence Lewis post-game at the Fiesta Bowl. Like, he never took the bait from the media. He said, C. Lou's our guy.
We love C. Lou. He said that. We love C. Lou, yeah.
We're going to go and work with him, and we're going to get him right.
Right.
And he's going to make plays for us next year.
Right.
That right there reassured that young man that he was in the plans. And when you have that type of support from your coach, that's why he went hard. That's why you see the change in his body, because that's the foundation of believing that my coach believes in me, that I can do better. I can make plays. I'm about to put in the work. And I do.
And Sean, that's why the defense always responded to adversity last year. If you got to look, when the defense had rough spots, they tended to respond with a really good follow-up game. We talked about that. Like, that was the thing about them, is like when they had their issues or when a player had an issue, a lot of times they'd kind of bounce back. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you didn't go out there and get your butt ripped in practice. I mean, you got, hey, look, this ain't good enough, right? But the fact that your coach has your back and he's not going to just, you're always looking over your shoulder. I think a lot of times that's going to be what helps the team kind of bounce back from some of those struggles. And it's like you look at the North Carolina game, right? They had a terrible game against North Carolina, but they bounced back by having 4 straight dominant performances on defense.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a part of it. I think, Sean, you were this way. I thought, Ryan, you also immediately followed up with, when we were talking about practice, like both of you literally said the exact same thing to me. And it was this phrase right here. I really like Tariq Bracy in the slot.
Yes.
Like, I mean, it was like one of the, like, without even asking, it was just like, I really like Tariq Bracy in the slot. What did you guys see today, Ryan? What was the first thing you guys saw? I mean, he did get some field action. And there was one particular play that I saw from him that was really just really, really, really excellent, which was he was playing the slot and he was working outside to the flats. They had run an out cut, and the tight end was number 3, was working an option route. And Tariq worked out, and he has his eyes inside on Drew Pine, and he sees Drew lock in on the tight end. He stops, plants, drives inside, almost picks it off. And he would have picked it off. He's taking it back to the house. But I thought he looked, for me, Ryan, I thought he looked as comfortable, like in his own skin, as I've seen him as a player. What were your thoughts on what you saw from Tariq?
I mean, so Tariq gets in good phase in every aspect of the cornerback position. You talked about a couple already, Brian, where it's just like he's just a hair, like it's perfect coverage. But unfortunately, he's a smaller guy. He doesn't have great length, and that's why you see a lot of those guys that have shorter arms when they transition to the NFL level, they move inside because there's just an absence of length. Like that's what happens. You see, though, inside, the length doesn't matter as much because you have help on the inside. You have guys behind you. There's just less of space to navigate them working outside the numbers and doing all that type of stuff. So I really like Tariq because Tariq he's aggressive. He'll play physically, and he's got really good change of direction. And I think that he can make.
He's an excellent athlete, Ryan. That's the thing that people have always missed the boat on. Tariq is one of their best athletes.
Yeah.
It's just he hasn't always been a great football player.
Yeah,
sure.
He's an exceptional athlete.
And I think that nickel position could be a very surprising strength for Notre Dame this year because it's not even just him. I mean, we haven't talked much about Philip Riley. Philip Riley worked a little bit inside and out, and I think that both those guys working in the nickel gives you 2 different body types, and I think it gives you a lot of possibilities also.
Vince, the first thing you said to me when we started talking about DB, because I called all the guys afterwards, hey, here's what I saw. What'd you see? Vince says to me, Jaden Mickey talks more than anybody I've ever seen.
But I loved it. Like, and then he was like,
when Braden Lindsey smoked him, he said, like, he was still talking to him. He got beat by 10 yards, and he was still talking to him.
Well, there was a play in the back of the end zone where Thomas was it was a high throw. Mm-hmm. He went up for it. He dropped it. Jaden Mickey had nothing to do with that.
Sean talked about this one with me.
He had nothing to do with the play. I mean, really. I mean, he was covering him. He was covering Jaden Thomas, but he had nothing to do with the play. So Jaden Thomas is laying on the ground, and Mickey is just standing over him, just talking trash for like 10 seconds straight.
like he did something.
like he did something, which he did nothing. But it was great. And then, Jaden Thomas is kind of walking off a little, it's like, oh man, is he hurt?
And Mickey's just following him back.
Yeah, it's just his pride, man. His pride is hurt. That is about all that is hurt from Jaden Thomas right there. But I loved it, man, because he competes.
You need that. You need a corner needs that unshakable confidence in himself.
Yes,
he does. Because Sean, you and I were talking about this. Like that's why Gary Gray had the collapse he had because he didn't have unshakable confidence. That's why Tariq Bracy struggled in 2020 when he was getting beat because he doesn't have unshakable confidence. Somebody just said it too in the chat. Like Mickey talks like Robert Blanton did. I'm sorry, with all due respect to Robert Blanton, I love Robert Blanton.
Yeah.
But Mickey talks way more than Robert.
I have never.
Mickey talks more than Kavari Russell.
Yeah,
like seriously,
it was great.
Kavari was the most persistent trash talker I've ever seen at Notre Dame, right? And I started covering the team in 2010, so I covered Robert for 2 years. Nobody talked more than Kavari Russell until Jaden Mickey showed up. Yeah, I mean, just nonstop.
And you want that? Like I said, it's infectious in different ways. there's a little bit more personality on this defense. Then you've had great players
Sure.
on this defense in previous years. There's a lot more personality on this defense. You like the entire practice, Jason Adeyemiola was talking. And he
wasn't even out there. I mean, he's not even practicing.
He's not even practicing, and he's talking like before the snap, like, let's go.
Right.
So
leadership.
Leadership, personality.
And I want to say this too, guys. Part of that in the secondary is because of the two new additions in different ways. Jaden, because he just never shuts up, right? And he's got to get better, and his technique's got to get better and all that. But like, I love that confidence. But then also, like you talk about Brandon Joseph and what you guys are telling me about, just the communication. Like it's kind of like you've got some fresh blood in there. You've got some fresh personalities in there. You've got some guys like Jason Adeyemiola and Justin Adeyemiola kind of taking on leadership roles. You got Marist out there where he wasn't out there after the first couple weeks of fall camp. Like, there's some new juice out there. And I think that, and I'll say this, guys, I didn't think the defense had a very good day, but they didn't act like they didn't have a very good day.
Right.
And that's a compliment. That's not meant like you guys got to be more realistic. It's just like, they don't care about what just happened. They've moved on. It's time to go focus on the next play. And we're coming with some attitude.
Right.
I think that's something that I really liked from this group today is there's a lot of communication, and when I say like, there wasn't a lot of trash talking other than Jade and Mickey. There really wasn't a lot of trash talking per se, just a lot of talking to each other. That's a good thing. And as Sean, was it you that said that's something Al Golden was like constantly harping on
at the back of the defense, talking about communicate. And look, there's nothing like having someone as a reference point. Like Tariq Bracy can sit there and tell Clarence Lewis, man, I went through it. Mm-hmm. I know what you're going through. Right. This little spell of playing bad, doubting yourself, I went through it. I came out of it. You're going to come out of it. I just feel really good about the synergy and the energy of this team. Like, forget all the other stuff. We can nitpick about this position, that position, how Marcus Freeman is going to be as a head coach. The talent alone gets you 9 wins. The talent alone on this team. Now, let everything else we're worried about or think about play out, and that will decide the other 3 games and what the ultimate record will be.
Yep. We're not quite wrapped up yet, folks. We got a couple more things we're going to talk about, but I want to remind y'all before people start bailing, before you leave, please hit that like button for us. Please hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell for us. Check out all the cool links we have down below about the Irish Breakdown merch store, the channel, all that kind of stuff. We've got the Built Bar merchandise. That's all rocking and rolling. So really appreciate that. But definitely hit that like button and also share these shows. If you listen to a show that you like it, share it. Let other people know about it. We really appreciate that. It helps us to build up our channel, continue to build up our channel, and get it in front of more eyes. 2 more guys I want to talk about quickly, fellas. Number one is I'll just kind of say this and move on. Chance Tucker still needs a lot of work technically, but I thought he ran well. He moves, I thought, really well. That was encouraging. I think the thing that I would say my takeaway biggest from the secondary is there's work to be done. But I thought I didn't see anybody that I saw today outside of, we'll talk about Clarence, but like most of the segments, like I don't see a lot of tight hips out there, guys. I see a lot of really smooth, athletic looking guys that some of them need to get stronger, right? Some of them need to continue to be more consistent with their footwork. But athletically, I really liked what I saw from just the whole secondary, really outside of, Clarence has his moments in transition, but, Clarence is a good plant and drive athlete. Like he's a really good plant and drive athlete.
Right.
DJ's not an overly athletic guy, but outside of that, guys, this is a long athletic secondary. I think that's the 2 things. It's very long, and we didn't even see Clarence Lewis out there in practice. It's very long, and I think very fluid group to me. Anybody have anyone want to take issue with that?
Early in the practice, I think DJ made the first scrimmage session. DJ made a couple of plays in the flat, coming up to swing passes.
He laid some wood at one point in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. So just like
he's just not athletic.
No,
that's the problem. He's just not athletic enough to. I mean, the problem is, Sean, you're going to get in games like Oklahoma State where he's going to get put in space and he just.
Yeah, and it's going to be an issue, and then he'll get exposed for not being as athletic.
That's why I'd consider moving him to Rover.
I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. No.
I think he can help you there.
He
I
probably
mean,
could.
in certain matchups, I think he could help you there. So, but I like what I saw. It's funny. It's just serious. Both Ryan and Vince both talked to me about this today. So we're going to talk about kickers today, folks. We're going to wrap things up talking about kickers. Unprompted, both of them, Sean, came up mentioned the kickers. Blake Groupie, who's like 5'2" and 109 pounds.
He looks like somebody's little brother on a recruiting trip that got to put the helmet on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that.
I need to comment on the weight for a second. He's listed at 150 pounds. There is zero chance my man is 150.
I stood next to him.
Zero chance.
They brought.
He looks smaller on film than Dylan.
Dude, we actually made that comparison.
I said that.
We made that compare because they're the same height. They've got him listed at 5'7", 3/8. Okay, that's almost exactly what my freshman son is, and this kid's like 23.
Freshman in high school.
Freshman in high school, yes. And this kid is like 23 years old. But he is small in stature. Okay, there's he is a tiny, tiny man, but the ball just has a different sound when it comes off of his foot. It reverberates through the entire indoor facility when he kicks it. I mean, he can crush the football. I'm just saying.
Ryan,
people are gonna be happy with him.
Hold on, Ryan. This is a text message. I don't share text messages. That's private business. This is a text message that Ryan sent me in practice. Groupie ... better leg than I anticipated. Like I don't want to hear about a kicker, but that's how impressive he was. That Ryan just felt the need.
That was my first analysis of the practice.
It was your second. Your first was Aaronsberger looks massive.
He did.
That was your first one.
It looked
wide.
But Ryan, I mean, that's a good sign. I mean, that's because people don't like somebody just said Reggie Ho. I mean, Reggie Ho was never a guy that anyone would confuse for having a strong leg.
No.
Right. And that was the big concern. Like he didn't attempt many kicks out past 40 yards at Arkansas State. So if you guys are telling me that the ball comes off well, that's a good sign.
He had, I think the longest attempts he had on today was they didn't like push it. It was like 43, I think was the longest, which a couple, but Ryan, I'm telling you, like the 43 was going like all the way up the net. Like it wasn't like just bare, because I assumed smaller guy, right? I saw the long and career for Arkansas State. Right. I was like, he's probably like a 47.
And just the number of attempts from 40 plus, Ryan, were super small, were super low.
Exactly. Right. But I mean, I'm telling you, a couple of, and again, it's an indoor facility. So
absolutely,
we got to put that in the context a little bit. But like, he was good from well over 50 today, like easily.
Yeah, easily. He had some boom off and I was surprised because he's tiny in comparison to all these other dudes out there. He is a tiny human. But he's got the leg swing, man, and he booms the ball. I was very impressed. And I will also say that that Josh Bryan has and I've told you this in the past, he's always been more accurate. He's always been the most accurate kicker on the roster since he's been here. It's just he didn't have the distance, that Dorr had, but he was way more accurate. And it's the same thing. He's got a very high arc. It's not going to go as far, but it's accurate as all get out. So like anything inside of 40, he's going to hit it. No question to me. But I do think Groupie has a stronger leg.
I don't know if anyone's actually listened to a interview with Blake Groupie.
I have not.
But he is a really charismatic kid.
Is he really?
Yeah.
They brought him up, I think, for interviews today.
Yeah, they did. And I interviewed him. So like I got wind that he was going to commit to Notre Dame. And so I got his number and I was able to talk to him before he committed and do like an interview. And he does not sound like he has some personality. He has some like, real confident kid, like real confident in himself, which I think you kind of need to be when you're, yay tall and about $125. Right?
Yeah, seriously.
The best part of the day, and I think Vince can attest to this, was when they were doing like a circuit drill and they were working through, kind of getting off of blocks. Yeah, they were getting off of blocks down the field and they were running to the rabbits. They threw, and for people that don't know, the rabbits, they are, players, they put pennies on and they're just kind of reacting out whatever in this.
They have to be chased. They have to be chased, basically. Yeah.
They put the specialists as the rabbits.
Just mean.
The pennies.
It was just so mean.
Funny. It was so funny.
And Groupie could not figure out how to get the penny on, and he finally just took it off, handed it to the coach, and just went to the sideline. He's like, I'm not doing this. I'm sorry, but it was hilarious to me.
And he was wearing 99, and one of his 9s was off of his jersey for some reason.
It was like washed off, fell off.
It basically they probably didn't have anything small enough, so they had to go to like the local Pop Warner and get him a 99, and it was all kind of like.
Or they found some like
out.
99 jersey from like the Dan Devine era. Like,
it was like Little Giants out there, man.
Yes, it was. It was great. Now I will also
around.
Yeah,
we're listening. Well, I'm listening to Freeman, right? Mm-hmm. And I turn around and I see the kickers, and it's like he's charismatic, and just his personality, he's carefree. Mm-hmm. He literally, like, I'm not trying to be facetious. He literally jumps in the high boy chair and starts dangling his legs. Now, so that just makes it look even worse. Like, oh my God, you look like a little kid right now. This is our kicker. And I'm trying to hold it in, but that's what's going on in my mind. Like, is he dangling his legs right now? He's swinging his legs from the high boy.
The best part was that Jonathan Dorer was there too, and he was standing next to Blake Grupe, and it was the most odd looking thing ever.
Jonathan Dorer's like 6'3".
Oh yeah, he's long, dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's an athletic, long-looking kid.
He was a soccer player, I believe, in high school. Yeah,
yep.
Like he's like Jonathan Dorer's an athlete. Like he's got some. Not the most consistently guy, like in as far as mental mental locked inness, but yeah, I would have loved to have seen Jonathan Dorer standing next to him.
It was hilarious.
Like when Justin Yoon's looking down at you, like you're not a real big guy. You know what I mean? Like that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. Reggie Hope putting his arm around him, like, hey, man, but as long as he can kick, and that was the encouraging thing about today. Yep. I mean, we're having some fun here, but for me, I think that's the big thing though that you guys are telling me. Like, look, he's got a big leg. That's for that size, that's a positive sign. That's a real positive sign. So fellas, there was another guy on the sideline there today. A lot of former Notre Dame players were there today, which was pretty awesome. But there was another kid today, about a 6'6", 230-pound, pass rushing kind of dude. I got to tell you, my favorite part of today, of all the photos and videos I saw, was a picture of Keon Keeley walking in the snow with a short sleeve shirt on. I said, thank you, Lord. He's not soft. Whew. I was a little nervous. I'm like, oh, crap. I woke up this morning, I saw snow on the ground. I was like, oh, Keon's here today. This is not going to be good. But he's walking into campus with a short sleeve shirt on, and I'm like, okay, he's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. Keon's going to be all right. So that was a very good sign, fellas. And you guys, any final takeaways from today's practice, fellas? Anything you want to leave people with? Because like this everybody, this is the only full practice we're getting. That's it. Yeah. The rest of it's going to be stretch and individual. That's it. This is the only full practice that we're going to get.
We're not going to get any scrimmages, nothing until
and
April
apparently Notre Dame's not going to be putting any videos out of practices. Apparently, we've seen one.
Crazy.
So maybe they're holding it all in or something. I have no idea. But so this is kind of what you're going to get until spring game. Really, we're going to couple little small things. But we'll go Ryan, Sean, Vince. Ryan, any final takeaways from today's practice?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great experience just in general. I mean, like you were just saying about Keon for a second, I think Sean Turner was like, oh, I think is that Keeley over there? And you're just looking at him, you're like, the dude's a skyscraper. Yeah, that's Keon Keeley.
He walked right by me, and he looked like my dad. Like, I mean, I was like, hey, what's up, man?
I want a picture with him and Blake Grupe.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I wonder if he got a chance to meet with Blake Grupe. I would keep Blake Grupe as far away from Keon Keeley as possible because I don't want Keon thinking there's like Notre Dame. This is what a Notre Dame football player. Like he's a kicker, man. He's a kicker.
No, Blake Fisher to meet him, and then we're all good.
Yeah. Sean, how about you, bud?
Man, right now I'm putting up something. Everybody, when we're done with the show, go over to the message board. Just got through conversing with Drake Bowen, giving me an update on his conversation with Keon Keeley and how the visit went today. So I'm throwing that on the message board right now. And that for me is like the cherry on top of this entire thing. Like it was an experience combining yesterday with today. You guys have done it for me and Ryan, being Notre Dame fans from the time we were small to be able to walk in there and experience. And I'm glad we experienced, this was our first experience under this regime because I felt like we're receiving it the way it should be received as a fan. And kudos to IB Nation because of you guys and the way you support Brian and Vince created this opportunity, and we are great. Ryan and I said it to each other driving back and forth the last 2 days. Like, we can't believe we're here. Like, we can't believe we're here. His dad had the same reaction. My dad had the same reaction when I talked to him. So, we're very appreciative to be able to be the conduits for the program to you guys. And we hope we do a good enough job for you guys to continue to support. And I'm excited, man. I'm just excited about this team. I'm excited about the direction of the program. And everybody should feel really good about where things are headed. You should feel really good about where things are headed at Notre Dame.
At Notre Dame and Irish Breakdown. And Vince, we'll end it with you, but I want to say this. Like, I made a promise when we launched this channel a couple of years. Well, it's been a little over a year and a half now. And when we launched Irish Breakdown, when I got that started, I said, look, if you all support us, well, that money's going to get reinvested in growth. Well, that's it right there. Right. And that's it. Right. And we're not done. I mean, we had a business meeting last night, which was a blast, by the way.
Meeting. It was awesome.
It's a ton of fun. But the point was, like, hey, fellas, like, we're just getting started, right? Like, we're just, Ryan's only been doing this 2 months. Sean's been doing this less because Sean didn't really start, like, kind of really getting rolling until February. So we're excited about it, and we're going to keep growing. And we appreciate all of you being a part of our channel today and our show today and everything we're doing. But I'm excited to have you guys on board. Last night was so much fun. That was the first time we've all four been in the same room together,
which
was a lot of fun.
So we need it. That needs to happen more often.
But. Yeah. So Vince, it's a little expensive for
me
to get Ryan.
Ryan needs to move a little closer, but whatever.
Get him to move out of New Jersey. You never know. That's where all it's away from
gas
all family
over here.
No kidding. Not as much as it used to be.
I know, right?
But, anyway, Vince, final takeaway from today, and then you can go ahead and take us out of here, man, after you're done.
Sounds good. Hey, the biggest difference for me, and we touched on it at the very beginning, the competition level, the hype level, like all of it is so much better than it has been in the past. I mean, it starts from the second that we walk in, and it's not fake hype. Like, the fake hype used to be real loud music and all this other stuff. Like, the music is just kind of in the background, no big deal. But it comes from the play on the field, and it comes from the coaches, and it comes from the teaching that's happening on the field, and it comes from the competition, and it all starts with the head coach. And I loved every second of it. A lot of times I get bored at practice in the past. Wasn't bored today.
A lot of standing around.
That's exactly right. And number one, it was because I was hanging out with these guys. Like, it was a lot of fun.
And
number two, well, I mean,
that hurts.
I was talking to you too. But it was also because of what we were seeing on the field and the way things were going on the field. The competition never stopped. It was awesome. And I know it's going to continue. And I'm looking forward to being a part of it and seeing it and relaying that to everybody that's here. So it was awesome. And I can't wait just to keep this thing moving. So with that said, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to Ryan and Sean for hanging out in South Bend with us, because it was a blast. And I personally appreciated it. That is for show. Beast Daniel with the super chat at the very end. Thank you very much, Beast Daniel. Says expenses are tax deductible. Way to go, guys. So there you go. But make sure you hit that like button, share, all of those different things. Share, subscribe, everything. And we really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. We need to do more of these four-way ones, because this was a lot of fun for me. So
somebody in this chat spends too much time on a different show. I'm just saying, like, so it's kind of hard to get them.
I thought you were going to say I spent too much time on a baseball diamond or something.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, I know, right? But anyway, so
I pay you more than the baseball team does. That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's
you need to,
That's actually true. But anyway, thank you for joining us, and we will all talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.